Stagger Stance, episode 188. It's good to be back, guys. I wasn't here last week. I know you didn't miss me, but I missed all of you.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks.
I even know, I think I kicked off the intro last week and forgot to even mention you weren't here. Sorry.
It's okay. It's the way we set up the show to be. I think we set up redundancy. We don't need me. We don't need Nick. It's not the Nick and Matt show anymore.
Not no more.
No, it's good to be back. Episode 188. This episode is presented by Disc Golf 978. They're our episode presenting sponsor every episode this year, and we could not have a better partnership with Disc Golf 978. Free shipping over $25. Their players are tearing it up out there on tour. They've got what you want. It's incredible what they're doing there. Again, if you're local, check them out at their new location at Meadowbrook Orchards Disc Golf Course. I think you just say Meadowbrook Disc Golf, but maybe it's Meadowbrook Orchards Disc Golf. I think it's Orchards.
I think it's Orchards. They go by MBO.
Okay.
Meadowbrook Orchards.
Better than just BO.
There you go,
Evan. So yeah, we're excited about all that they have to offer. I will say it again because I always say it. The best part, my kids just played one of the tournaments that they provide payouts for, and it is just amazing. You finish the event, you get an email. Hey, it's added to your account. Get what you want. And again, free shipping over $25. I get to pick player packs. I get to pick the payout, what we want. It's the best thing. If you're a tournament director, aspiring tournament director, it's going to be the easiest option for you. And if you're already established, check it out, try it out anywhere in the country for sure. Maybe the world. You'll have to reach out and see how that works out, but they'd probably do something for you. It's good to be back, guys. I was in Texas all week. I left New England, and it was 50, 55, hit Texas, 85 degrees. Bang, just like that. It was pretty crazy.
I just realized we have two Ben Kennys on screen tonight.
Oh, I'm Ben Kenny. Thank you.
You're Ben Kenny. Ben Kenny is Ben Kenny.
Look at that.
Ben's taking over the show.
This is what he does when I leave, you know?
Yeah.
You never know.
Slightly intentional, maybe.
Playing mind games with Matt.
Before long,
slightly intentional.
We need to insert that meme. I'm the captain now.
That's right. Yeah.
Before long, we're all Ben Kennys.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Slowly but surely. Oh man, lots going on. I wasn't here last week, and of course I wasn't. Let me get this out of the way. FPO action. The week I wasn't here to talk about it was amazing. I'm on, and I'm like, man, I couldn't get back on after literally following up the week prior where everyone thinks I am an FPO hater. I'm like, this week, it was last episode, I'm like, this is literally epic competition. It was big time. It was exciting. You guys talked about it, but I wasn't able to come on and talk about it. I want to make sure my voice is heard there because even this week was exciting. Now, Kristen wasn't there. That's not why it was exciting. We'll talk about that. Evan will give it to us. In fact, if anybody else doesn't have anything to go right now, we'll let Evan take it away. So
yeah, let's
Evan.
do it because I'm gonna step in and say no one has anything. Let's start with FPO then. We didn't have Kristen Tatar in the field. We didn't have a whole lot of other fantastic players, but that's not to say that there wasn't fantastic players in the field. Just it was after the major, some weeks off before the traveling, whether it's back over to the Europe to start the Elite Series season over there, or getting a head start on the break before the West Coast for the Elite Series events in North America on that side. But it ended up being a playoff between Missy Ganon and Haley King, and we saw at least at this level at a Elite Series or a major, we saw our first aggregate playoff. That's a new rule this year that allows a multi-holes, and it's the best score at the end of those holes. I think it's 2 or 3. This case was 3 holes. Then that determines the winner. So even if somebody birdies the first hole and someone else pars it, it's not over. It keeps on going until the end of those set determined number of holes. In this case, again, was 3. And if it still is tied after that, it will then go to sudden death, as we know and love, or maybe love. I don't know. I love all playoffs. It's fantastic. But Missy Ganon wins in the 3-hole aggregate playoff. There's a 2-stroke swing on hole 17, which was a second playoff hole where Missy Ganon got a birdie and Haley King got a bogey. And then it went into the final hole where Missy Ganon was able to play fairly conservatively and get the tap-in par to win. This is her 7th career major or Elite Series win, and the wins are starting to pile on for Missy Ganon in her career. She got her first major win just earlier this season, and now adding another Elite Series on. She's moving up the leaderboard fairly quick. She's actually one behind the career milestone win number she's one behind Haley King. Worded that poorly. And then approaching on Elaine King and a few other great names, moving her way up that legacy leaderboard. I mentioned Haley King came in second. She won this event last year in a playoff, interesting enough, and wasn't able to go back-to-back playoff wins in Emporia. And then want to mention the third member of the podium who missed the playoff just by one stroke, unfortunately. We'll talk about that OB call on 18 that unfortunately left her off the playoff, and that's Emily Weatherman. She played her first Elite Series or major this season, true rookie by that metric, and has been playing fairly good, has a top 10 at Texas States, and now here has her first podium. Their first podium of her career for a major or Elite Series event in FPO. So really, I thought it was a really interesting event. I know we see Emporia every year. People have all sorts of feelings. Hole 18 was majorly changed this year. There's still some other changes. I thought it ended up really fantastic. Before I get into MPO, any thoughts in FPO? What did you see? What did you like? Let's go over to Josh.
Oh, well, so many talking points. We're probably not necessarily looking to dive into each of them. Everything from, well, I'm not even going to go into them all, but like you were mentioning, how close the OB was to how close the competition was to potential foot fault calls, challenging hole 16, hole 18, water carries, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to comment and say how close was the competition at one point, like looking at the leaderboard. And of course they were on different holes, but I feel like there were like 4 or 5 people tied with like 2 or 3 holes left. So yeah, Matt, you already kicked us off with acknowledging how good the competition was. In this case, it was awesome. And right down even through the playoffs, just really, really exciting to watch. I remember not talking about 2 weeks ago, but in past years, people were challenged with acknowledging what's the quality of the FPO field. And to be fair, it was a growing competitive field. There were some amazing players there, but the field depth is just, it keeps growing, which is a similar trajectory we saw for MPO over the last decade. So it's great to watch and great to see. When other people in my household are like, oh, it's close, let's turn on the live stream and sit down and watch, it's pulling people in.
Yeah, I'd love to see the stats on DGN for how it gets boosted around that time, because what you said definitely happens for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially seeing a playoff as you're watching. If you're just watching scores and not watching live, I feel like if you see a playoff happen, you kind of just gotta stop what you're doing, pull it up, whether it's on your phone while you're doing the dishes or mowing the lawn or something. I don't know. You see a playoff, you tune in, and I feel like I would agree. I think the numbers would be pretty high in viewership for this one.
Yeah, and look, I just comment too, like the playoff itself is exciting, but when you have that many people tied going, it's almost like it's the pre-playoff, meaning every stroke on every hole, as we saw evidence by even the outcome, mattered for like 6 holes straight, which is pretty crazy. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Even after this win, Missy Ganon still sits in 4th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. She trails behind Evelina Saladin, who has the number 1 spot, thanks to playing all the events up to this event before missing DDO. She leads Kristen Tatar, who's in 2nd, who missed Champions. She played Champions Cup. She missed Chess.com. Sorry, Nick, for messing up the name of your event. But
you're good.
Mixed it up with a great major. So
exactly.
And then Kristen, of course, was not in attendance here in Emporia as she heads back to Europe. And then Owen Scoggins is in 3rd place. Missy Ganon also missed Music City. So all the top 4 has at least missed one event. But that's tough competition up there at the top of the leaderboard, which, interesting enough, does not include Paige Pierce or Katrina Allen, which has a little bit been the theme the past year or so, which big change in FPO. Moving over to MPO, though, we have a winner for the first time in over a year by the number of days, and that's Calvin Heimburg, who, after 371 days since his Jonesboro win last season, gets the win here in Emporia. He's been close many times before. I believe this is his first win in Emporia or at the Dynamic Disc Open. And he looked really good, especially in the final round. He edges out Ricky Wysocki, and actually Gannon Burr was up in the 2nd place position by the end of it. Ricky did trail off the final couple holes, so I misspoke there. He was finished in tie for 5th, but it was a battle between those two on the lead card in the final round. This is Calvin Heimburg's win number 10 for a major and Elite Series events. He is the 8th player in MPO history to hit double-digit win numbers, finally cresting that. He has more wins than Simon Lazat, which is not to dog on either of those players, but I think it's a great comparison. Both of those players are obviously fantastic players, incredibly well liked, might be the two biggest fan favorites in the sport right now, or at least in MPO. And they're both searching for their first major win while being wildly successful in Elite Series events. So, Matt, I'm throwing this over to you. Vinny gets a win. I feel like the tide's turning, and you aren't so hard in the sand in the other direction. But I wanted to say that he had more wins than Simon Lizotte to give a point to you, obviously being a big Simon Lizotte fan. But what do you think the weight of this win is, hitting number 10? And then what do you think the future holds for this season for Calvin Heimburg?
Well, first of all, the negative take is think of how many wins he could have had to this point.
Oh, my goodness.
Think of how many he could have had. Calvin, it was on, I think I saw Isaac Robinson interview with Drew Gibson on Drew Gibson's YouTube channel, where Isaac came out and said himself, Calvin is the least clutch player on tour. And I was like, maybe that's what I've been missing how to say it for so long. I always say he's the best player who doesn't win. But I picked him this week for Pop Drop Lock, and he won. I'm not saying it's because I picked him, but to your point, he's been really trending up after a slowish for Calvin start. So what do I think for him? He does this little roller coaster every year, stays pretty consistent and average. I think he'll get another win. I don't see him getting 3 wins. And I know that would be epic, but I see him getting another win. It's going to be a solid season for him per usual. But now he's got Gannon Burr and Anthony Barella really chomping at the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. And congratulations to him for hitting 10. You said the 8th or 18th?
8th.
8th, yeah.
Person.
Wow.
So yeah, not a lot. I mean, of course, it's been a while with Elite Series events. 2003 was the first year with Elite Series events with the National Tour starting. Prior to that, it was just 1, maybe 2 majors a year until USGGC came around. Or there was a couple other years with multiple majors with the WIF Diff or Japan Open. But there wasn't a lot of chances. So players like Ken Climo and Barry Schultz maybe could have more wins. I mean, Barry was a little bit later. Around the early 2000s. But anyways, all that to say is the list could be longer, but at least for the last 21 years, still a long time and a lot of great players as their sport is growing, a lot of opportunities. And yeah, he's only 8th player to get double-digit wins in MPO at Major Elite events. So big congrats to Calvin. And he has been no slouch in between these wins, the 371 days between wins. He only finished outside the top 5 in 4 events. 2 of those were still top 10s, being 6th and 7th, so that feels awfully close. And then the other 2 after that were 2 34ths, oddly enough, the same exact place at chess.com and Music City Open, both this year. So that's 16 top 5s otherwise in between this, which feels unprecedented, but a couple bad finishes, but he's kind of still doing it this year with incredible consistency up at the top of the leaderboard. Gannon Burr finishes in 2nd. Meanwhile, Anthony Barella finishes in tied for 14th. And that's just to say those 2 are the top 2 in the Pro Tour standings and definitely the 2 hottest players of this year. I think a lot more people will feel it's Anthony Barella, of course, getting the 3 wins to Gannon Burr's 1. But Gannon Burr is approaching on that points number as I click over and figure out the exact gap, but it's 5.8 points to separate those 2 at the top with a about 135 point gap after them until you hit Wysocki. So Gannon Burr getting another podium, but then the next 2 names I want to talk about are Gavin Rathbun and Joey Anderson, Joseph Anderson, Joey Buckets. Gavin Rathbun having a career resurgence this year, was battling injuries, goes unsponsored, and now he's had a handful of great finishes this year. This is the 2nd podium of his career for major and elite events. His first has to go all the way back to 2021 and all the way back. That's not that long ago, but for how quick the sport's growing, it feels a while back. And that was at the Des Moines Challenge in 2021. So it's been a long time coming to get back to this point, and Gavin's definitely showing off as of late. I'm going to put in my subjective opinion. Love the stash. There's been a lot of hate. I think he looks great. Gavin, keep on rolling. And then Joseph Anderson gets his best finish of his career, finishing 4th. He's had quite a few good finishes this year. 9th at chess.com, 12th at the Open at Austin, 6th at PDJ Champions Cup, and now 4th at the Dynamic Dis Open. We talked to him earlier this year. I did an interview last year about his 1100 rated round, or even 2 years ago, I think that was. So he's been on my radar for a while. And now he's finally just putting his name out there for everyone to know. And I think the nickname certainly helps that. So everyone knows his name now. But I wanted to open the floor for Gavin Rathbun and Joey Buckets. Just general thoughts about those two playing super well this year. And I'll throw it over to Nick.
Well, it's good to see Gavin kind of come back and start playing well since he was dealing with a pretty significant injury. I forget whether it was his knee or shoulder.
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 Yeah.
Shoulder. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like there's so many injuries now. It's tough to keep up with everyone. But it's good to see him start playing well again. He is, from what I understand, an unsponsored player. So he's throwing mixed bag this year. He's no longer on, I think he was DD before.
He's
so
on Gateway right now.
He's on Gateway right now.
So, but still open bag. Yeah.
Gotcha. So still open bag, throwing some Gateway discs, having that sponsorship, but mostly an open bag. So good to see him kind of get back up there. And Joey Buckets, I think, is the man. He put a ton of work in over at chess.com. Him and Braden were there very early before the event. So I got to spend a pretty good amount of time with them, watching them throw the course. And they're both ballers of players. But seeing Joey Buckets kind of rise up, he doesn't have the most distance. He doesn't have, I would say, the cleanest form, but he's just accurate. He's smooth. He hits his putts, and he doesn't make a lot of big mistakes. We're seeing a couple of the holes over at Champions Landing this week had a lot of big numbers on them, and he was able to avoid that, which obviously propelled him to an incredible finish.
Yeah. Rolling down the leaderboard just real quick. Andrew Presnell finishes tied for 5th. He follows up his incredible first major win with the top 5. And at a course like this, where we all know him as a wood specialist, a gap hitter, here we are in Emporia, where it's a little bit more about distance and keeping it out of the out of bounds, which he can certainly do that well. But great to see that follow up. And then Chris Dickerson finished 7th, who has had been having a really good comeback year this year after being quiet last year, and I think might still feel quiet this year. He's having a little bit more noise playing well, but he's up to 6th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour points. Has finished top 10 every single event since the first event at chess.com, where he finished 28th. And then Gavin Babcock finishes top 10, and I want to note that mainly because he was seen with a picture of George Kittle, who's a tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, a professional American football team. And he is one of the best tight ends in the game. And those are big dudes. And Gavin Babcock standing right next to him and looks the same size. And I think that's incredible. Shout out to him for that connection and getting a top 10. And then last 2 names I'll mention is Isaac Robinson beats his brother Ezra Robinson, who Ezra is playing well and has had a lot more noise this year for playing well. And Isaac maybe keeps on getting called maybe not the best start to the season, but he gets a top 10, beats his brother as maybe was expected after last year, but not quite this year. And then Mason Marchbanks, I had to throw that name out because I picked them for my pop pick, averaging in the 80s, and he got a top 10 finish for the second year in a row at the Dynamictus Open. So we'll talk about him shortly here in a second, but I want to throw it over to Europe because we had the first Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe Silver event. Disc Golf Pro Tour is the newly formed kind of European branch of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I think that's the best way to say it. After the European Pro Tour was, I think, acquired by the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I don't know if that's the exact word. And then there's also the PDGA Euro Tour, which is now made way for this to happen with the Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe starting off. And so they had a silver event at the Belgian Open. This is the part of the show where I try to pronounce European names and hope I get it right. But in MPO, we have Timo Lampinen. I feel like I got that one, but I certainly could be wrong. He gets the win, which is his first win at kind of I don't want to say elite level, a top tier tour in Europe. He's had a couple of good finishes before, and notably his last event of last season on the Prodigy Disc Pro Tour, which is the Finnish National Tour. I think is the best way to say that. Out in Tampere, he finished 2nd. Which that's a good course to finish because we'll see that for Worlds next year. So he gets his first win of the season and leads the Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe standings for the time being until we see an Elite Series event at the Copenhagen Open this weekend. But then in FPO, we had Anneli. Oh man, I'm already doubting myself there, but Tuyas Monaste. Really big apologies there. There's certainly no way I got that right. I would love to learn how to pronounce her name because she has been making a name for herself recently. This is also her first win for kind of a top European tour. She's had quite a few good finishes before. It's her 9th podium at these levels that I'm saying, and has lot of good finishes before. I mean, finished second at the Estonian Open last year, finished second at the Belgian Open, second at the Copenhagen Open, lots of good finishes. So here she is getting the win. Will be exciting what she does the rest of the year. But we'll talk a little bit more about Copenhagen Open later in the show. But I think that finishes my recap. So Matt, let's go check on points because I'm interested.
Yeah, we're pretty much there. We didn't even tease off the top of the hour unless you saw the title of the show. Missy Ganon will be joining us tonight, and Big Germ Jeremy Koling will be joining us in about 10 minutes. So if you're made it to this far because of the stats were interesting, you're going to want to hang out and hear what he has to say about his debut and live commentary. Also, one other quick note, for our live audience, it matters. Everybody else doesn't really change anything, but we are now set up on an ultra low latency live feed. So by the time I get to 1 and 2 and 3, you're already seeing it. It's about that fast. So you guys should be able to interact with us even faster if you'd like to. If we ask for feedback or polls or our audio's messed up, you guys should be able to tip us off real quick. It's a little test we're running tonight. So nobody drop any bleepable offenses. We can't take it back anymore. Nick, no dropping who players are going to. We can't recall it. So,
chatters, put the word pudding in the chat right now. Let's see how fast.
Okay, so 1.
We're
They have to
testing
type
their
it too.
response time also. Yeah.
Yeah, they got it. Just put a 1 now.
1
Okay.
and pudding.
Watch, it's gonna start filling up here.
Oh, that was pretty fast.
But he had to retype pudding probably a few times. Okay. So here we are, the part of the show we're going to go into pop, drop, lock points. We'll talk about that, and then we'll get ready for the Big Germ interview. So here we go. Pop, drop, lock, everybody.
Pop, lock, drop, yeah.
Every time. My computer bogs down.
Ben says it wrong every week.
Yeah, he says pop, lock, drop.
Pop, lock it, drop.
But I think he's dancing in the
dance
background.
Yeah, that's why.
All right, I think that was weird. The audio cuts out for that part, but all right. So we're going to reveal points for this event, the Dynamic Disc Open. By the way, the trophies were a glimmering remembrance of Glass Blown Open, the days of old. And it honestly, I sound old when I say this, but man, I look back to those and wish we still had them. The Glass Blown Open was legit. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. But here we go, into points. I'm going to kind of guess at how we reveal the points here because I'm going to do my best to bring up the orders as they are. First up on the board, I believe we're going with Nick at 18 points. 18 points. So
This was a rough week for me. My pop didn't even play in MPO. My lock didn't play in FPO.
Oof.
My drop actually dropped from the event in MPO. My lock did not clutch the final round. My pop in FPO, I think, actually did okay. And then
Who was your pop in
drop-
FPO?
my pop in FPO was Hannah Wynn.
Mm-hmm.
She was, I think, top 16, which I think is better than her average.
Yeah, she gave
She
you
on
10
lead
points.
card round 1.
And then
Or
who
round
was
2.
my drop? I forget.
Rebecca Cox.
That's what it
Minus
was.
2. She
Yes.
outperformed.
So
Gotcha. So
that's
rough
what
week.
happened to Nick. Yeah, interesting.
Which I really need Matt to not be in first place this week.
All right.
Like, to blow me out of the water.
Let's see. I think we're going next to Josh with 33 points. This is one of your best
We
showings
played
yet,
well.
Josh.
It might be one of my best. Yeah, but not good enough.
Okay. Moving on, I think we are going to Benjamin. 58 points. That's solid, bro.
Yep.
Anything stand out?
Madison Walker, thanks for playing.
I will say that is free points for a little while until she starts averaging out her average. You know what I mean? So she started out crazy.
And I didn't have my pop. My pop dropped, so.
Going back to what Nick said, man, we should have a prize. We should have a prize if you pick everybody who drops or DNFs. It's like a bonus points.
100 points.
All right. All right. I think I'm up next, actually.
Yeah.
87 points. Wow. I'm happy with that. I picked Calvin.
Matt's.
I picked Ben Calloway to pop, and he did. I think he got me more points than Calvin's win. I had Holland locked, but it's an okay performance. But anyways, long story short.
I mean, yeah, MPO, you killed it. I mean, you had Luke Humphreys, 21.
That's right.
Heimburg, 25. Callaway, 32. You had 78 points just for MPO.
Yeah, I'm struggling with FPO. It's a harder field. In my opinion, it's harder, unless you play the Ben Kenny and Big Madison Walker. But Luke concerned me at first. The first round he came out, he was like 7th place or something. And I'm like, this guy, way performing this year. Good for him. All right, and last but not least, in fact, not least at all, the top here, 96 points going to Evan. And I will say for you, Evan, that's with you taking Ben's pops as your drops.
I know. Well, one, I'll thank Ben for picking a MPO player who dropped. What was that, Drew Gibson?
I don't think he was even registered. So
no, it's not one, it's the other.
Not being prepared.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Madison Walker strategy is paying off, and it's hurting me. Negative 22 points, I believe, from that pick. So that's unfortunate, but you guys certainly needed me to get those subtraction points. I think I had over 100 points in MPO with Mason Marchbanks getting 70-something. I think it was 76. Wow. And then picking Calvin Heimburg, the winner. So I'm happy to finally pick a winner. I feel like I've been picking a lot of top fives lately, which is my FPO pick, which is Holland Hanley. This was the one to win. Of course, Missy Ganon's a great competitor and a handful of other very fabulous players who totally could have won as well. I mean, Haley King. But I feel like this was Holland's to get. I mean, of course, she'll have plenty of chances this season and her career. But that's my 5th time picking her for a lock. So I'm kind of forced not to pick her anymore.
You're done picking Holland, and you know what's crazy is if we just zero out Madison Walker, you score 118 points, which is more than half of your total season score.
Goodness. Well, yeah, because Madison Walker in previous weeks, but it's still.
Oh right, I agree. I'm just saying it's like it
hasn't been the best season for me so far.
Yeah, but I mean that is a significant jump. And now I am 27 points behind you
for the season.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big.
I am in last place.
Am I above Nick now too, or still trailing him?
I think Ben's above me now.
Yeah. Matt is beating everybody quite a bit. Ben is 12 points ahead of Nick, so that's within reach. And then you've got me 27, or Evan 74 points behind that, and I'm 27. So things are still all within reach, especially when you get a week like a 96. Anybody can do it. But picking like Mason for 72 points, I don't know how many times that's going to happen this year. That was crazy.
I got a quick question for Ben, actually. Since we just played Champions Cup last week, Eagle McMahon, return to the sport. You feel good about your bet still against me?
I feel very good about. You know why I feel good?
All right, you want to go double or nothing?
No.
No. But you want to know why I feel good? I started a different podcast called Funzy. That I'm doing, and
You're leaving us?
No. I'm doing it with my other buddies, Jay Millie and Sacco. And then we posted a reel, and I was talking about Eagle, and Eagle commented 3 hearts, and I was in the whole reel. I was like, I believe in Eagle. I love watching him play, so I believe in him.
It's the feel good podcast. Ben just says what all the players want to hear. It's fun.
Not really, but that is one of our things. That if you want to hear criticism, you came to the wrong place. We're not going to call people out. That is one of our things. We have Funzy.
That's kind of funny. So I will say in a quick review before we move out of this segment and bring in Big Germ, the winner this week got 160 points, but they picked, this is always fun to look at, Ben Calloway as a pop, Cole Radalin as a drop. Does anybody know, just real quick, what happened there?
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So he dropped from the event. He was either playing hole 16 or already had played hole 16, but either way, he was playing it. He was low in the field to begin with. He was playing it as the FPO round finished up, and Missy Ganon and Haley King went to a playoff. He posted on Instagram saying something about how there was a wait, and so he didn't want to do the wait, and just, I think his mental space wasn't in the right place, so he ended up dropping from that event with just a few holes left, which is unfortunate to see. I don't know all the feelings behind it, but
he got par plus 4. Was he able to call that a finish, or is that a DNF?
Yeah, I thought.
It's a DNF as of now.
It wasn't showing DNF on the results.
It was showing he was like playing very bad. I
remember looking at it. It was either early this morning or late last night. Which
that's
is important
interesting
because for like Disc Golf Pro Tour points, for instance, you receive 1 point just for playing, but you don't receive any for a drop.
Well,
so if you DNF, you have 0 points. So it doesn't change his place right now. But he could have gotten an extra Disc Golf Pro Tour point just by sticking the last couple holes.
We have to look at that.
Don't know what's going on there
because the winner has him, and if that's a DNF, that is not actual points, and it would actually go to the second place here. So that's going to be.
It says DNF.
It does now?
Yeah.
That was not originally DNF when the points were calculated.
Correct.
So maybe we'll have to figure out both here.
I think he did get par plus 4.
All right, we'll end up doing both, but either way, they picked Calvin Heimburg, Haley King, Rebecca Cox to drop, Holland Hanley. So it was really that MPO pick, that Cole Riddall, that actually swayed it there, which now we're finding out isn't correct. So the next place who would have won that was Mason March. Anybody who picked him has a good chance of winning, and they did. So
yeah, you're welcome, guys. Good thing you listened to the show, which that was an awful big brag for myself. And it's the first time I can really do it this season. So
you may have swayed it because I'm not sure how often he's been picked, but he was picked 12 times.
Let's go.
Oh, actually 11 times, and someone else picked him to drop.
To lock?
Oops.
Oops. Yeah. That's not a listener.
Points.
Or just a big hater of mine. One of the two.
All right. As we wrap up this segment, thank you to Hooligan. This segment is presented by them. Can you go back just to 5 up here? So we are not doing picks for the Copenhagen Open, and I'll explain that in 30 seconds or less. There's not a strong enough field. I don't mean strong enough quality-wise, but touring field is how I should say it, where we have good, accurate information to go off of averages, which is how our system is set up. Evan suggested, and I think we all agreed, we think we could play it off of rating. Generally, your rating is going to be your average. If you perform over or under your rating, that would be your pop or drop. The only problem is our system was not set up for that. So it's going to take us a little bit to do that for the next European events. So this week there's a break from pop, drop, lock. So be on the lookout for the rest of the ones in the US here. And then we'll have information for the next upcoming, probably about 3 or 4 weeks away again until we get to the next one. So without further ado on that, we do have Big Germ in the green room. If he's ready to go, which I think he probably is. Let me see. I lost all my screens. Okay. Go ahead, Ben, when you're ready, we'll go ahead and put them in. Boom. All right, cool. Hey, it seems like we just did this, last time. Welcome to the show, dude.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, man. I was just here.
Awesome. Are you in the Midwest?
Yeah, I'm somewhere, I should know where I'm at right now. I just pulled over on the side of the road. I needed gas. I realized there was only a few minutes left before the show, and I saw Dick's Sporting Goods. I was like, all right, I got a reason to pull over. But I'm past St. Louis, and I'm on my way back to North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, because I know there was players, and I know Seth Muncy mentioned it, dodging some tornadoes and stuff today as far as like the location where they are. People were rerouting and stuff, so I didn't know if you were hitting any of that, but good sounds like.
No, there was some rain for sure. I saw that notification that he put on the Disc Golf Pro Tour Players group. And it was like, okay, like I was already in the mood. I was already in the process of breaking things down and putting things away in the RV. And when I saw that, I kicked into second, third, and fourth gear. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to be in the middle of this. I mean, I've experienced so many windstorms. I've seen tornadoes. I've seen hurricanes. Maybe not hurricanes. Those are coastal, but I've seen plenty of crazy hailstorms. And that's what he was calling for. So I was like, man, no, thank you. I'm out of here. So yeah, I got moving.
The chat is asking if you have like a multi-level like trailer RV. It looks like you're in a stairwell.
Yeah. I'm in my fifth wheel RV. I've got where's Jackson at? Oh, there's my buddy right there. Yep. But yeah, we're just in the parking lot here at the like I said in this shopping center. Actually, some guy just came by and started honking. What's up, Big Germ? But yeah, I got the bright, colorful RV with me today.
Nice.
I mean, pretty much all tour, I've got my RV with me, and yeah, I get to travel with my home everywhere I go.
Yep. It's funny because it looks like one of those like, Jules, get down here. I'm downstairs and I'm hungry.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, here's a quick tour.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, there we go. And then the bedroom's behind me.
It is elevated. That is nice. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when we were originally talking about potentially getting an RV, we were talking about getting a travel trailer, and then we went to this used travel trailer site, and I stepped in it, and the ceiling was 6'4.5", and I'm 6'6", and I was like, bro, I'm not living in this right here. And then he's like, well, I'll show you the fifth wheel. And I was like, all right, I'll take a look at the fifth one. I went in there, and the first one we saw is not the one that we bought, but the first one I saw had a full chandelier that I couldn't even reach. And I was like, oh, home.
Wow.
So we turned our sights from getting a travel trailer into a fifth wheel. The problem is fifth wheels are way more expensive. They do require a bigger truck. And I jumped to some conclusions. As soon as we made the decision to to get an RV, I bought my F-150, and you run into some weight regulations with the F-150, and so we had to get on the smaller side of fifth wheels. But I'm pretty sure that's not why you guys asked me to be on the show today. But that is the backstory.
It's all cool, dude. It's all cool. People love hearing about these insights for their favorite players on tour, and you're one of them. Speaking of, you did not play as a player this weekend. You were in the booth commentating live, and I think many people had reactions to that. And I'm sure there was some on the all over the spectrum, but most of what I see is people saying they absolutely enjoyed it, and they're dreaming. They have their like dream team now in their head. This player, this guy, this guy, this guy, and you're one of them. It sounds like. And then you have people that are just like, no. And so like it's all over. But I wanted to hear your experience because you've done such a solid job in the post-production world and whatever you've done, whether it's champs versus chumps and all that kind of stuff, all the way to now DGing live. So tell us, what was it like? What was the differences for you? Is it fun having people talk in your ear while you're like all that stuff? Just give us the download.
Yeah. So since the last time that I worked DGN, that was a couple of years ago at the DDO as well. So the only time that I've actually done live has been at the Emporia, now called the Community Club, not the Country Club anymore. And so the last time that I did it, the screen that we were looking at had like 5 or 6 different small screens, and we could see all the potential shots that Mo might send us to. So we kind of already knew what was going to happen. But now we just see the same screen that everyone else sees. We still have Mo in our ear giving us information. All right, cut to break, yada, 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 giving us the instructions and what we need to look out for. Okay, we're cutting again and on hole 2. So we know the scene and who the player is that we're about to talk about. But no longer are we worrying about the distraction. So I really appreciate that improvement. But man, doing live that's the way sports were intended to be watched. So working in the booth is just it's an honor. It's a privilege. It was a joy. First round, we were delighted to 2 highlights, 2 amazing highlights with Ricky just splashing out for ace on hole 4. And, like every time I do post, whether I've seen the shot or not, I've at least heard rumor about something crazy happening. And so it's, like you're not quite sure how it's going to affect you in the moment. But when you're doing live and it just strikes you, you get that real genuine reaction, which I just, in that moment, was really cool. So I really enjoyed it for that respect. And, for the most part, I'm quite receptive to any of the feedback and critique and all that. And so I generally get on Reddit or Facebook or whatever, and I'm perusing for actual well thought out or well worded critiques. Or, if there's praise, you have to receive that as well. It's nice to read that people are enjoying it. But if somebody is saying something about the way that you're producing or commentating the action, and it's something that you can relate to, and then you can appreciate this well thought out critique, then, I definitely am always in the mind that I'm always looking to improve. I don't have a communications degree. I'm just a passionate disc golf fan and a player. And, as you guys know, I don't have any problem talking for a while. So I've just found myself in this position, and I'm always trying to improve. That being said, the most of the feedback that I've gotten for the live stuff has been really overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying they really enjoyed the show. But on the flip side, it sounds like a lot of people feel like my post-production commentary suffered because of it, because I wasn't quite as surprised by each shot. So I have to take that into account and try to keep that in mind, because I am doing another DGN at the Portland Open next month.
Interesting. Yeah,
so
because you're still doing
twice.
post. Yeah, you're still doing post following live. Wow.
Yeah, that's a long day in the booth. You're going essentially 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours between coverage, where you'd like to sit down. I got to come back to the RV, let Jackson out. You know what I'm saying? I got to get a bite to eat. I'd like to just rest and kind of rest the brain and mind before I have to go back into the Jumas booth. But once my day starts, it's pretty much full go until 1 a.m.
Yeah. So what do you think? You commentated on the event, and so you had a front row, just as we all do, but you're there actually calling the action. What did you think of how this unfolded? Calvin, it's been a little bit since he's won, and Ricky coming out with the lead into the start of the event. It was a little surprising to me. It was great to see Calvin perform, but what was your perspective commentating on it?
Well, I mean, I feel like, there's an asterisk behind the event because I didn't play. Besides that,
Sure.
I have to say that I'm kidding, of course. No, Calvin played great. He in the wrap up, I was like counting how many bogeys he had. Calvin had 3 bogeys for the tournament. He had 20 pars, and the rest were birdies. I mean, the guy was just, and he had an incredible putting stroke final round. He just came out blazing. And Ricky's the kind of player who loves to, once he gets out to like a 2 or 3 stroke lead, he just builds off that. He just loves that energy around Jackson. He loves the energy around having that stranglehold on the competition. And Calvin didn't give him any wiggle room from the start. And if you are going to take down Ricky, the best front runner in the modern age of disc golf, you have to start off the way Calvin did. And he never relented. And so, I mean, it was just awesome watching Calvin do his thing because he is just such a magician off the tee. The way he's able to shape late turn fairway drivers, the way he's able to trust overstable drivers into headwinds, tailwinds, crosswinds, the way that he's able to throw the disc under the wind, just throw these line drive shots. He's just so precise off the tee. And man, when he makes his 40-foot putts and in, I mean, it's really like a forget about it situation. He's going to win every event if he's doing those 2 things well. Mm-hmm. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's the most gifted player off the tee that we have seen, since maybe prime Macbeth and maybe Ricky at its best. And like the only other player that I can think would even compete would be Eagle at his best. And I mean, just the superstars, this year, AB at the 3 tournaments that he won, he was amazing off the tee. He was making his putts. I mean, pretty much any person in the field who's doing both of those things is going to be in contention. But when they're doing it at a different level. They're getting farther off the tee. Their putt is consistent from about another 10, 15 feet. And it's impossible to compete with. And, we don't see Ricky get beat from behind very often. But, I mean, it was just a recipe for success if you start off the way Calvin did.
Yeah, it was like you just said, you don't see Rick get beat from behind too often, and Calvin just came out swinging and he did it. Kind of off the topic of MPO a bit, just because it's relevant, you've probably seen it, like some of the calls, or a call, let's go specifically to Emily Weatherman, and it's been all over the internet now. Whether or not we think it's inbounds or out of bounds doesn't actually matter, but this is Talk Sports, and I'm also interested just in your opinion in general. When you get to a call that is so close, what is it that you use when it's so close to make a determination? Do you go off of gut, Big Germ? Do you go like, man, that's so close, but I just have this gut feeling that it is out? Are you just going off of gut feeling when you're there?
Well, you're talking to somebody who was on the losing end of one of these situations at the Persimmon Ridge event, nearly a month ago. It happened round 1. I was, my shot wasn't what I wanted off the tee. I was fairly certain it was going to be out of bounds. But when we got to my lie, I've never personally, in all of my years of disc golf, seen one closer. And I mean, everybody was on their hands and knees, and like we were like, oh, yeah. What is and it was just like, at that point, what are we doing? Right. There's different people who've had, I suppose, slightly different interpretations of that rule. And at that point, if we can't definitively say yes or definitively say no, then there is doubt and benefit of the doubt in that situation. Now, the way it's worded is technically everybody has a vote. So you have a vote. And if 2 players both have contrasting votes and it's split 2 and 2, then that's the benefit of the doubt, because then but everybody is entitled to a vote. In fact, they're required to offer one. Mm-hmm. And, if the players that, Emily, right? Emily Weatherman?
Yeah, that was the player whose disc they were deciding on.
Right. I was watching live. Yep. And she was, man, what a heck of a performance she's put up lately, both in Houston. I believe she showed up in Houston for the first time. And then, yeah, I mean, she's been playing some great disc golf, and that call in the last hole, I think it cost her a podium finish. Is that correct?
No, she got a podium. It cost her a playoff.
Okay. It cost her a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cost her from being in a three-way playoff with Haley.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't aware of that. I don't judge the situation. I don't judge the players. If they walk up to the lie, they make their call. You have to be assertive with your call based on the rules as you understand it, and you have to give the call with conviction. If they believe that it was out of bounds, that no part of the disc was in bounds, then I respect them for being there in the moment, seeing what they could see, and make that judgment call. Now, personally, what happened for me was I actually was pissed off. I like with my call for Sim and Rich, where everybody was looking, and nobody can make a call, and I'm like, guys, like, if we can't make a call here, then what are we trying to do? And only one player was definitive in saying that it was not clearly inbound, so therefore they interpreted that as out of bounds. But I just felt like in that situation, what would I call someone else? And I don't think I could see myself saying yes, definitively out of bounds. And so in that situation, I felt like I had been done wrong, and I actually told Jules in that moment, I said, they're going to see Medieval Germ come out because I'm now pissed. And I haven't played with fire like that in a long time. And I'm not even kidding. I don't think I even come close to winning that tournament had that situation not gone down that way. It knocked me into focus mode. And I used it. I played with a vendetta after that. And unfortunately, Emily, I mean, she's a completely different human being with different life experiences and different sporting experiences, all those things. And so who knows if she has more holes to play if she uses that. But I personally like those kind of things. In my basketball days, I'd show up to the court. I was Mr. Fun, happy guy. But then somebody had to run their mouth and say, hey, you ain't dunking on me today, white boy. And I'd be like, why would you? Like, what made you come after me? Like, I never started talking trash to you, but now I'm going to have to dunk on you. Like, you've said something and now we have a problem. So like, it kind of kicked me into that gear, which is something that I've missed in disc golf for a long time. It's a gentleman's game. And usually like trash talk is usually reserved for friends who don't really mean anything. But like, when you feel like you're slighted, ooh, all right, now we're going to kick into an extra gear that I haven't actually been motivated by it in a long time. But anyways, back to the Emily situation. Again, I respect the call. I respect the players that made the call. What I would like to see in the future are stakes every 30 to 40 feet. And in the group, one person has a string that can wrap to each one of the posts, and you pull the string tight, and then you have a definitive line. And that's what I would like to see in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like the painted line creates all these crazy divisions between like, okay, there's a little spray paint overspray here. Does that count as the line, or is it the thickness of the line? Like, and then you've got grass that is clearly not painted that comes back in between those lines. And so that line, if you're getting down to the very nitty gritty, it's not always definitive. And when it's that close, and it can cost someone an opportunity to win a disc golf pro tour event, then you see the reason why having string is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would personally like to see in the future as we standardize our sport. But like I don't expect the whole course to be strung up, but if you have stakes, then you can just take that string, pull it tight. I think you still do the paint, but the paint is just a guide, right? Mm-hmm. It's a rough guide. And then the string is the official line that the players get to pull tight and then make that call with that very fine line.
Yeah, I have similar feelings. I'm glad you shared yours there. Just gonna say before I pass it over real quick to Josh, then we let you get back on the road. What was it about the debate, if you will, over your call at Persimmon? What was it about that? Was it that you felt people had made a wrong call? Or what was it that got you into medieval germ?
Okay, all right. I don't want to call out any names.
No, don't say names. But like,
I'm not going to call any names. But there was one player on the card who looked at it and just said, "Sorry, Germ, my call is that's out of bounds." Okay. And I respected that call. That's fine. I was okay with that. Yeah. The other two players were wishy-washy, which is like fine because everybody was wishy-washy. I could not definitively say that it was certainly in bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that no one else could definitively say that it was certainly out of bounds.
Okay.
And so everybody was just kind of trying to give it their best judgment call. And there was a moment where one of the players was like, you know what? I see where you're coming from, Jeremy. Like, I tend to see this argument makes a lot of sense to me. And they were very close to finishing up their statement when another person showed up and then said, that's out of bounds. Like, not in the group, not even playing the tournament, an official of some sort. And again, I'm not going to say any names, but it was like one of these, like, why the hell are you over here? Like, what are you doing? Get out of here. You know, like, get lost. And then as soon as that person came over there and said that, AJ changed his tune. And then all of a sudden I was out of bounds. And I was just like, we're at this moment where I feel like we've got a hung jury. Like, I'm in bounds. If we have a hung jury, if we are crouched over the line, looking down at it from this close, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
After the official call was made, I respected the fact that the group had made their call and that was what they were standing by. But then I you can't touch the disc in that moment. As soon as you touch the disc, if it's touched by another player, it's inbounds. And if the player touches the disc, then it is deemed out of bounds, right? So once the call was made, I lifted the disc and clearly there was inbounds grass underneath the edge of the disc. And that really set me off because I was like, see? Like, this is why if it's that close, you can't just, the benefit has to go with the player in that moment. And so even though it was one stroke, it ended up costing the field about 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would have been much better off by just calling me in bounds.
We gotta hire just Big German personal trash talker. Get him fired up before rounds.
Oh, dude, Nick, please do it, man. Please do it.
Oh, he just froze up. I'm gonna pass it over to Josh.
It has me like dying laughing.
Bro, I had a heckler at a
go ahead.
I had a heckler at a it was a skins match. It was a showcase skins match at the Mountain Disc Golf Experience in Asheville, where we used to play skins through the streets of downtown Asheville, North Carolina. And honestly, of all the tour events during that early 2010 era of my disc golf career, this was the day of the of the season that I looked most forward to. And it was just such a cool opportunity. You had the cops blocking the streets off, and we had these really cool holes that were going down to these shops that, like, I would go into as a patron. So, like, it was just this. Anyways, it was a cool experience. One year, a friend of mine at the time, we had just some completely unhashed out beef, and he took it with him into this event, and he was heckling me during my throws during this, like, huge day in my career, in my every season. And he knew how important this thing was to me, and he was heckling me. And I tried to get people that were there to, like, govern all the patrons to, like, hey, take care of this guy, right? Like, get him out of here. But he pissed me off, and then I ended up birdieing, like, all the holes. I won all the skins after I, like, settled down from it. So I think you're right, Nick. I think we need to start getting people out there to get under my skin.
I'll put up a GoFundMe. It'll just support, hating on Big Germ before the round, and then see how you do. And then you, after your winnings, you just pay everyone back.
We'll see. We'll see if that actually works. I think if it's intentional heckling, I think then I'll know that the purpose behind it is untrue, and then maybe I don't do so well.
It'll be like Happy Gilmore. One of your competitors is going to call up their boy, and then it's going to be like, "You suck, you jackass!" And then, like, mid-throw.
That's what the guy was saying.
Yeah,
the guy was saying "jackass" in my throw.
Yeah,
I was getting so mad.
All right,
we'll go to the Red Lobster right after.
Let's pass it over. Let's pass
Where else
it
would
over
you go
to
celebrate your $130 winnings?
Josh, you got a question or two, and we'll let him get back on the road.
We don't have to drag it out. I've enjoyed listening here. Thanks for coming back on. We don't interview many people who did live this year, and so I'm curious. Do you all talk about your approach and how often you're going to throw it out to the on-field reporters? Like, what is it? Literally just you're winging it and you're like, hey, we want to ask him this question, or we don't want to ask him this question.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, there's very few times where we'll have, like, a group chat on our phone, and if they see something interesting, they'll buzz in, and we might be able to see it on our phone, and we'll be like, okay, we know that Brian has an interesting tidbit about something that he just overheard in the group. Let's send it to Brian. But this week we also had Terry on chase card. And so there's two different people out there that we can shoot it down to. And so you're just trying to really be aware of, what the storyline that's developing is. And, if the conditions are, inclement, then you want to find out exactly what kind of wind is going on. And so you don't really, Mo doesn't interject too much in our ear to say, hey, send it down to Brian right now. But he does sometimes. And so it's kind of a mix of both. It's like there are some instructions, but a lot of it, I would say most of it, is just Ian and I just feeling it out and being like, you know what, I know Brian has some information on the course that we could really benefit from. Let's send it down to him. Cool. But yeah, it's kind of just feeling it out.
Well, it's clear to me that, Ian loves to throw it down. So like he's constantly doing that. But I was just curious on the perspective. Hey, so besides some general, of course, you're going to have some constructive critiques, but I think people really like you and Ian together. I think it complemented each other. So besides Ian, who would be your like dream person to do a live broadcast with? Who you hoping to get in the booth with you in the future?
I mean, there's some great commentators. I think I have a lot of respect for Charlie Eisenhood. And I am drawing a blank right now on Brian Earhart's co-host sometimes on the after show. Not Perkins, the other one. Do you guys know Grant? Yeah, Grant Zellner. Yeah, Grant's great. And I mean, I think a lot of people would appreciate the famous Big Sexy. I mean,
yes,
working live with Nate would be pretty incredible, honestly. I think most people would think that might be the dream layout. But we're both color commentators in that respect. And I have a ton of respect for what Ian has to do and what the other hosts of the show have to do when Mo is talking to him. Okay, layout, but then also like we're sending to a break right now. And he's talking kind of loudly in your ear and you are trying to communicate verbally what's going on and send it to a commercial with someone in your ear. If you've ever tried having a conversation with somebody while listening to lyric heavy music, it's like that. It's incredibly difficult to stay focused on what you're actually saying. And I definitely got caught up a few times during the tournament myself. I was in the middle of saying something, Mo's talking, and I just kind of like lost train of thought. So it's a different role for sure.
That's cool. When my son walked into the room with the live broadcast on, he's like, "Oh, I thought you were watching Jomez," right? Just because he heard your voice. So I'm sure that probably wasn't the only one. All right. So lastly, how did this compare to your experience trying to live broadcast at Eagles Crossing last year? I assume this was a little bit different.
Jesus.
Was this a little more live production? Sorry, I'm laughing with you. So.
No, that was incredible.
I don't think we talk enough about that experience.
Did any pictures ever surface from where we were working? Did you guys ever see any pictures of that?
No, I only had the green screen.
Well, I think I saw there was stuff flying around, but who knows what we saw?
It looked like, and I'm not even kidding. If I were to imagine what it would look like for a member of ISIS to record like a threat against America, it would be in a room that looked just like this. And I know that sounds super insensitive, but I'm not even kidding. That is exactly as I imagine it. There was like tarps hanging off the roof. It looked like a ruin. I'm not even kidding. Like the building looked like it had been under like fire from some air raids. And it was
but you voluntarily walked into it though.
Yeah, I did. Well, it needed it. I mean, the goob had no idea what disc golf was. He called the tee-pad slabs, which I kind of respect. Yep. Kind of dig slabs. That was kind of dope on his part. But the lack of knowledge of the sport, to me, it's nothing against him. You know, a very well respected sports commentator in the Missouri in that area. But I think he's like in the St. Louis Hall of Fame for sports broadcasting. Like the guy is a legend in the sports that he's done, but like had not done enough disc golf research. And the questions he asked and the statements that he made, the assumptions that he kind of came up with on the spot were clear that he had no clue what the sport of disc golf was about. And So I was listening and I was like, we've got 3 cameras that are stationary across the course that are zooming in 1,000 feet away to catch a shot, and we've got the goob who has no clue what's going on trying to call the action at the largest payout in history. $50,000 is going to first place, and this is what's happening. This no, Big Jeremy can let this go down like this. We got to step in. So
Wow.
that was an
So
emergency red alert situation.
That's a fun, good memory. So yeah, I know that's nothing about this weekend, but I just felt like I had to ask how you would
Bro,
compare.
I'm not even kidding. I felt like I was being held captive. I was like nervous actually for a bit.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, I mean, people like to knock. Most people love what DGN is doing. Some people like to knock it and all this stuff, but you know the complexities, and just to see how their operations increased and you get to be part of it, it's pretty awesome.
It's so easy to knock when we have ESPN and we've got these established sports broadcasts that have the best of the best, millions of dollars at their disposal for any project that they want to work on, the best cameras, the experienced camera operators, and knowledgeable communication experts that are delivering all the information. And disc golf is so much volunteer work, man. There's so many people that are not getting paid nearly enough, using equipment that's not quite top of the line. And they're doing a damn good job of giving people an incredibly reasonably priced product that is showing the best of the best in the world do incredible feats. And they're telling the story very well. And so I've got a ton of respect for how much goes behind it as you see the amount of work and the amount of dedication given by all these people who, like I said, they're paid, but they're not paid well enough to honestly deal with all the things that they deal with. And the lack of appreciation, it just doesn't help. I mean, we're here to hear feedback, but the blatant criticism and the vitriol that comes from people who don't really show the respect, it's the reason why you see people leave the sport. Like people just get burnt out. Tournament directors run tournaments and then all they hear is crap, and then they don't hear any praise for all the time they spent raising funds and making sure the course looked beautiful, and then maybe one thing wasn't run correctly, and then they hear hate. And I'm here to spread the message of love and appreciation, and I hope other people see that and put some energy into that, because it's really how we grow.
There you go.
Agreed.
That is good feedback. There was laughs. There was crying. No, I don't think I was crying.
I was crying thinking about the freaking persimmon again. Although that place, did you guys ever see the trophy? Did I ever show you the trophy?
Oh, I don't know if I probably
Here,
would recall it if you posted it. Okay. He's gonna go
stay put. We'll interview.
Is that
it just happened to be really close, and so we're talking about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you. But they had like one of those laser engravers on site, and so they got my name on. Ching!
Whoa!
Dude, sick.
Samurai katana sword. Cha cha cha.
Wow!
All right.
Wow!
Sick.
Lifetime goal to win a weapon.
It's true. There's a few who have done that. Didn't Macbeth do that in Europe? The big axe.
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. He got the
Barsby?
axe in Norway. The Greater Hartford Open.
Greater
That big triumphant sword.
And Barsby won like that.
Yeah.
Barsby won it before Macbeth.
The same one.
Okay.
The same one in Norway.
Yep.
So more swords.
Oh yeah, we'll have to
More
do a
weapons.
trivia sometime.
I feel like there's another
more
axe
weapons.
somewhere. Like I feel like I saw Cat Merch win an axe.
We've
I don't
seen
know why.
paddles. We've seen paddles if that's a weapon, but all right. Dude, that
Depends
was
on whose hands are the pedal in.
yeah, exactly. Good talking with you. I always feel kind of like slightly bad that you pull over to join our show, but I'm also guessing it's a little break for you. Is that true?
Yeah, get out, walk around
Okay.
a little bit. I've got a sciatic issue that causes my leg a little bit of pain if I don't get out and walk around every 2 or 3 hours. But yeah, no, I mean, you definitely are costing me big time, but I'm happy to do it.
All right, man.
Well, if you keep joining us, then we're gonna have to add you to payroll. So
I know.
We'll hold on. For that.
Jared, what do you think
Wait,
about
wait.
what do you think about my
Add me to
3D
payroll.
print?
We already agreed on this, didn't we? Did we not? I'm looking at the 3D printed thing.
What do you think?
Zoom in on Ben, please. I got to
That's
see this.
too
He's
tiny.
on a small
What the heck
screen.
is
go
going
full
on?
screen.
What do we think?
What do we?
What the heck is that?
Honestly, bro, what are you showing me?
All right.
Why are you so proud to show me this weird?
That's like a failure. I don't know what.
Ben
is
doesn't
going on.
3D print. He just finds my scraps, Big Jeremy. He finds like the supports.
Hey,
It's the
I
support.
keep my scraps. I like the supports. I keep this scrap, the purge filament, and I collect that stuff in a garbage bag. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with it.
Just melt
But
it.
it's about the colorful scraps that, at some point I'm going to give it to an artist who's going to make a sculpture with it, and then, I'm going to get credit for it.
Very cool. All right, dude, we're gonna let you go. I'm serious. This is good. This is good stuff. We always appreciate you coming on. Safe travels.
Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, safe travels, and we'll catch up with you another time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Peace out.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Later.
All right, Big Germ.
So 2 quick things to take away on that. Okay. I loved what he said about live commentary, and I'm one who every so often I do harp on the live commentary. I like specific people in the booth more than other people, but I've also talked to most of the commentators just about, what really all goes into it. And when Hannah Macbeth used to do some live commentary, she would also share some of the details with it. And one of the biggest things, and we've all struggled with this before, when we get someone in the green screen and all of a sudden they start making noise in the background, we fumble our words. Or like Matt and I very
It's
early
like
on
a
the
space
show,
jammer.
we had a guest come on and there was an argument going on in the background, and Matt and I were like, dude, I don't know how to react right now. Like, we completely fumbled our words. So to have someone in your ear the whole time, saying, hey, get ready to talk about this, get ready to talk about that, while you are trying to talk to people, is very difficult. So I will give commentators the benefit of the doubt on that. But then the other thing is, you have all these other sports, and a lot of other sports are so much easier to film than disc golf is, or golf. Realistically, disc golf, we're walking around a course. We've got multiple cameras out there. We're going to different people. We're doing FPO. We're doing MPO. There's so many things going on at once. When if you're watching hockey or you're watching basketball,
Darts,
realistically,
cornhole.
you could set a camera right at half court up above everyone and just tilt left to right, and you'd be able to commentate the whole game. Now the NBA obviously does a much better job at that, but you would be able to commentate it all from one camera. Same thing with, darts, cornhole, all these sports that are getting more publicity, pickleball being another one, than disc golf is right now. It's because the sports are 1,000 times easier to film. Same thing with commentary on those side of things. So anyways, that's my rant. Love having Big Germ on. He makes me laugh just in the background every single time.
We can't, for some obviously privacy reasons, share every detail, but I just want to rehash just a few types of moments. As you said, in our green screen, we've had legit blow up arguments happen.
Yeah.
And you and me are trying to talk. This is back in the day. Extremely
This was
hard.
15 episodes in. So Matt and I still
don't say
don't really
that.
know what we're doing.
Someone's going back to episode 15.
I mean, they can't really tell who it is, but, or toilets flushing in the background. And you're just the dude literally went from our show and stayed on in our green screen room and went to the bathroom to keep watching. And we didn't realize it. And anyways, yeah, just fun times, but it can get very distracting.
That one's had me crying, rolling on the floor. We had to change our policies on things going forward. And then I remember somebody. Do you remember somebody dragging
The
over?
pots and pans,
it was
yeah.
it had to be a shelf of pots and pans, and I don't know why, but it was just and then you hear all the pots and pans falling on the floor
As we're talking.
There's incredible amount of stuff, and just to point it out, that is going on. Not pots and pans and not arguments, but it is hard to multitask. So. Good job to him. He did great with that. Yeah. Our next guest coming in at some point here will be Missy Ganon. She said she had to kind of change their route today due to tornadoes. You can see the Midwest is really tornado heavy. They already had, in Kansas, they've already had over 55 tornadoes this year.
What?
Wow.
So they're in that area. And so they had to readjust where their travels were, and she said she'll be fine. There's not an issue with that, but it just took longer than they expected. So
That's crazy. Why settle down in Kansas?
tornado alley,
that is so
You go-
scary.
A lot of people, they go where they get a job, or a lot of land out there is family-owned farmland, and so you
Yeah.
kind of just keep it.
I guess if you're born in it,
in the
I
family.
understand,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
that is
Yeah.
scary. I'd be scared to death.
One of my buddies, Billy Engel, he just actually played the DDO. Awesome dude. Awesome. One of the first guys to get on SportsCenter, actually, way back in the day for hitting an ace, actually at GBO or DDO. I forget which one it was back in the day when he hit the ace. I think it was actually GBO.
Yeah.
But he lives out in Oklahoma, and he'll post videos or pictures of like the size of the hail that's coming down or videos of tornadoes that go through, and it baffles me. I so badly though want to see a tornado in person. Now I hope it does not cause any damage to people. If it just goes off in the woods and unfortunately takes out some woods, whatever. But dude, I so badly want to be there and like see from a distance a tornado.
No.
I think that'd be wild.
Storm chase.
Do you remember it? I don't know if it's Ben that will remember this. Josh, you might if you were listening to these. Nick, you told a story about like the tornado alarms are going off and you're driving.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and
when
I
I was
made
coming
jokes.
back from Belton.
And I made jokes.
Yes.
I said like, ooh, ha, ha, like Nick's all
Yeah.
scared. And I got roasted online. Like Matt
Did you?
is the worst dude ever.
Wow.
Like making fun of Nick's like life.
Wow.
And I'm like, listen, Nick and I are bros. And
Yeah.
what you just said, I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody listen. He says he wants to see a tornado.
I do. So at that time, I'll tell you, and I'll kind of, quickly rehash the story. So
was different.
that was right after Open at Belton, back in 2022, maybe. And Chris Dickerson was on. I was driving back actually from Austin, Texas. I went and visited a good buddy of mine who was on a work trip out there. So I drove down to Austin, spent like a day and a half there. And then as I was driving back to Virginia, where I was living at the time, the Nick and Matt show was going on. And so I called in as one of the guests, and Chris Dickerson was the guest. And I was
caller.
like, hey, man, longtime friend or longtime fan, whatever it was.
First time
friend.
caller. You called into Chris.
Yeah, first time caller, something like that. And anyways, so now Chris and I have a running joke every time I see him. I'm like, hey, man, big fan, like long time listener, whatever. And that night, as I was driving through, all the players had went out to Tyler, Texas for Texas States that year. And I was driving through, and I like night driving. I enjoy it. It's comfortable for me, and I feel like there's less traffic. And so I kind of just go, 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 go. And I got about 30 minutes out of Tyler, Texas, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up with tornado warning, tornado warning, tornado warning. So I'm like, okay, well, if I just keep driving, hopefully, maybe I'll get past it. And so then I get into Tyler, Texas, or just outside of Tyler, Texas. I think it was in Athens, maybe. And, oops, am I back?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why it's doing this. Anyways, so I pull off the road, and there's like 40 cars underneath the overpass. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't good. And so then I pulled up under there, and a fire department firefighter guy comes over and asking if everybody's all right, kind of keeping us in the loop with everything. And I was like, oh, well, whatever. I'm just going to keep on going. So I called up Paul, and I said, hey, man, how you doing? Like, are you out in Tyler already? How's the weather? He's like, dude, it's awful. He was like, where are you? I was like, oh, I'm just driving home. He's like, bro, get off the road. So, like, what are you doing? And I was like, nah, don't worry. I'll beat it. And so I ended up driving, I don't know, like another 2-3 hours or something like that. And the whole time it was insanely windy. It was like the rain was going sideways. Crap was coming across the roads. I was getting blown all over the place on the highway. But at this point, for some odd reason in my head, I'm just like, my adrenaline's actually picked up right now. I just think if I just keep going, I'll get ahead of everything. That was kind of my logistical thinking with it, which in hindsight was awful. And so then I told myself, I was like, all right, well, I'll go the southern route. I'll go through Alabama, kind of make my way up to Virginia from there rather than going, I think it was up through Arkansas and going that way. And so anyways, I finally found a spot to sleep and woke up the next morning, and the town that I was in, all of a sudden, all the sirens started going off. And it was the first time that like I had really heard the siren. Like I actually got out of my car to like hear what the heck was going on. It just felt like I was straight out of a horror movie. And yeah, long story short, I think a tornado did touch down because I started listening to Ryan Hall, y'all, which is an awesome YouTube channel about storm chasers. And he goes live with all the big weather updates and all the storm chasing. And so I was actually listening to him to see, because I had finally gotten to a point where I actually was ahead of the tornado. But at that point, I had already been driving for so many hours straight throughout the night that I wanted to take a nap for a little bit. And when I woke up from my nap, the tornado had actually or the storm had pretty much caught back up to me. So I was like, okay, well, got to get back on the road now. And ended up finishing my drive. I think I ended up driving it was a 22-hour trip. And I think I ended up driving 16 of them straight. After I'd left Austin, Texas, I took a nap for a little bit somewhere in Texas or Mississippi, whatever it was. And then just was like, to hell with it. I'm just going to drive the whole way home. But anyways, that was the sketchiest moment. So a tornado at night, to me, would be a lot scarier than tornado during the day if I was a very, very far distance away from it. So I still want to see one, but I don't ever want to be driving near one again. That kind of sucked.
Good clarification. Let's jump
Yeah,
over
but
to
anyway.
let's
yeah.
jump over to hole 16 at DDO, the spotter on May 4th, 2024. A lot of people
Badass.
know it as May the 4th be with you. And dressed as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Do we know if he was actually dressed as Obi-Wan or was he just dressed as a Jedi? Because Obi-Wan had a blue lightsaber. He had a green and red lightsaber.
But he was wearing
so,
brown like Obi-Wan.
I mean, half the Jedi wore brown.
All right, we'll
Maybe
call
he
him
was an
Obi-Wan.
actual Jedi for all we know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he could have been an actual Jedi.
Let me just do this quick. My initial take, I'll get your feedback. Missy just joined the green room. I don't love seeing that stuff. We talk about, oh, do we want disc golf to look cool, like professional? But here's the deal. For this exception on May the 4th, I feel like it was fantastic. It worked. It was the perfect time. Literally the date worked into it. It was entertaining. It made sense. Maybe not one-off if somebody watches it knowing nothing about the date. I don't want to see it the next day personally. I don't want to see it next year personally. But it worked, and it was awesome for that day. Any other thoughts from anybody else?
I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as you, to where, like, if we're trying to be a little bit more professional, then it may not look the best. But at the same time, everyone wants disc golf to be completely separate from golf, and I totally understand that in so many different areas. You know what? For that day, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was a green lightsaber. It was a red lightsaber. I'll say this, and this is no slight to the family who does this on Maple Hill. I would rather a Jedi waving a green or red lightsaber than a family of 3 running across the island green on hole 8 at Maple Hill. That's
cracking me up.
that's
I'd rather a
that's my
Jedi.
take.
I know who they are.
Like I
and they're
said,
fans of the
thankful
show.
for everyone
so
that volunteers.
they're gonna
thankful
listen.
for everyone that volunteers. But yeah,
I was okay with it. I thought it was funny and cool, but
But no, you same. But I'm saying like not every day. Like I don't want to see
well,
like
let's just not turn it into like a costume contest
Yes.
at all
Yes.
on tour, please.
agreed.
and that's
No,
being
nobody
said,
try to outdo him. It's one and
Right.
done. Like, let it live.
nobody
professional
Let it die
Darth
on May
Vader.
the 4th.
Professional sports do have lots of entertainment that goes on during events. But listen, you're at a baseball game, they do all that like those side games, they have the mascot, same thing in football. You just don't see it as part of the game. Like you don't see like Obi-Wan running down the NFL sideline throwing flags. Like they could be at the event on May the 4th and the fans would love it. So like I think bringing fun and excitement to the course is fantastic.
did he do it all the round?
May 4th.
Yeah,
and
May
then
4th.
only on May 4th, and then he just
So
stopped?
it works.
So
I
he
think
did-
it works.
So he already did it. How you guys are saying?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. I mean, like there was some really weird, like funky disc action on the island. Like, you know, so who knows what he was doing with his Jedi
The
powers,
Force.
but it was
Okay.
pretty cool.
We got
OB.
Missy in the green room. Missy, if you're ready, we're going to bring you in. All right, here we go. Bring in Missy Ganon. Welcome to the show. I feel like we've had you on. Did we? We've already had you on this year, or we tried? I don't remember.
You tried.
Okay, we tried.
You tried.
And we tried again.
You tried and I failed.
That's okay. We speculated on the celebrations that occurred. She's embarrassed.
She partied hard after winning that major, and we do not shame her at all for it.
No. We were like, we will gladly give up the interview to another show. It's all cool, and we're happy to have you tonight. Fantastic performance. There's a lot of questions that come to mind. First of all, congratulations. That is big, and going to a playoff and having that to your title, adding that to your title and stats is awesome. Let's just go back a little bit. At any point in that last round, did you feel like, man, maybe it's not mine to win, or did you feel the whole time, man, I feel this hope getting down to the last hole, there's always going to be a chance?
I don't even really know. I can't even put it into words. I felt like the entire tournament, nobody really turned it on, and it was tough conditions, I will say that. But you normally expect like at least somebody to kind of shoot hot out there, or at least have a few strokes. But also at the same time, we've had a lot of battles on what was Emporia Country Club, now is Champions Landing. So it was just like I didn't really know. I didn't know if it was going to be my day. I kind of just, as I've been doing, just stayed patient and and just kind of took whatever the course gave me. But it was a weird weekend overall. The scoring conditions were tough.
Yeah. You did some great stuff. We're going to get to it. But you do come down to that last hole. You put it on the green. If you hit that putt, you win outright, if I'm not mistaken. I'm recalling the moment. That was your full intention, of course. You gave it a go and didn't go in. You knew we're going to a playoff. What did you think about? Were you aware that you were going to an aggregate style playoff? Is that new for you?
In the moment, I knew it. I knew I was hanging out with Holland a night or two before, and it had come up in conversation about how that was what the playoff was going to be. So casually, I found out earlier in the weekend. It was public knowledge. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was in the caddy book. I just hadn't. I guess I hadn't read that until we were talking about it. So I'm glad that I knew going into it, because I knew that Haley seemed surprised. She also didn't even know that maybe she had a little idea, but when we're walking off the green in regulation on 18, she was like, "Are we going to a playoff?" And I don't know if she was just joking with me or like having fun. I'm not sure, but she seemed a little surprised all around. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a little bit of processing, how it unfolded there at the end. And sometimes and we haven't interviewed her yet, but like sometimes there's processing, not looking at all the scores. Some people don't do that. Maybe she was trying to do it all in that moment. But so you go to a playoff, you step up to hole 16, and that gets exciting. Walk us through hole 16.
Yeah. So leading up to hole 16 in regulation play, I was throwing a disc that I had done field work with, but I didn't necessarily have any like strong ties to. It wasn't like a important disc in my bag. It was a thrasher that I knew could get me on the island. But I didn't make the island in that first go in that final round. And so when I went into the playoff, I actually ended up throwing a thrasher that I had been relying on quite heavily throughout the weekend, just to hopefully give me a slightly better chance of making the island. And the wind was a little bit higher during the playoff, but the one that I threw was a little bit more stable. So honestly, it looked identical to my shot the previous go around, and it just had a little bit extra faded just in time, skipped off the water, and instead of hitting the concrete connected to the bridge there, that's what happened the first time around. It was just short enough, just stable enough to skip off the water and scurry its way onto the green. The spotter didn't want to give
Right.
necessarily a concrete sign as to whether it was on or not, but I could kind of tell that I think I was on the island. I
Mm-hmm.
knew it was lined with string there, and also based on the crowd, they
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Yeah, kind of." So I kind of knew that I made it, but it was still a little suspenseful. But
So So you
yeah.
so you walk up to that and you see it's inbounds. It's pretty apparent and obvious, as well as like live viewing and all that. Walk us through your mindset, because this is an aggregate style playoff. I think
Yeah.
the commentary was a little surprised as well. And we're not, second guessing your skills to putt, but what was going through your mind there? Because if you miss that, I don't need to tell you, that's significant, and that could end it almost. And so, walk us through that. You went for it, you hit it,
Yeah.
but walk us through that decision.
Yeah, so on the walkover, I was talking with Tom, and we were obviously like kind of going back and forth, like, do I run it, do I not? I didn't quite know how close Haley was. Turns out she was quite close, 20 feet or so, which is never a guarantee on that green, but it certainly is a lot nicer than being up against the wall in the back there. So we never really made a decision, to be honest. We walked up there. We were still sort of like, I don't know. Should I run it? Should I not? Should I run it? And then, I get to my lie. I mark it. I get my meter off the water. I end up needing my whale sack and, to wipe off my putter. So one more time, I went over to Tom, did what I needed to do. We talked about it for like half a second. Still didn't make a solid decision. So what I felt when I finally lined it up was I felt like I wish I could say something heroic like, "Oh, I knew I was gonna make it," but that would be a lie. So, more so, what I can tell you with confidence is that I felt at peace with whatever the outcome was going to be. And I decided to just let my instincts take over. And it was kind of a really freeing moment. It happened so quickly, but I definitely felt like I let go of all of my inhibitions and just let my body do the work. And I was fortunate enough to have that putt stick somehow. It was not the prettiest putt. It was high. It was left side. It flip flopped in, and I don't know. It was just a really really cool feeling and moment to have that happen.
Yeah, and you can't, play hindsight, and if you miss that, what happens? But you did it, and that's epic, and that's I think that's really big, big statement from you as a player as well. And I think Evan's not on right now; he stepped away. But I'd be curious to know: do you know offhand how many playoffs you've gone to in like elite, like big events? Is this your first, second? Where are you at?
I think it's my first. I
Okay.
can't think of any other time. Yeah.
Wow. What was that like? You said you knew what you were going to get into if you went to it. Were you talking, by the way, you mentioned that it came up in conversation the day before. Were you kind of thinking, hey, we might end up in a playoff?
No, I don't
Okay.
even know actually how that conversation happened. We were just casually hanging out
Okay.
with Holland and her boyfriend, and it just sort of came up. I don't know if she was looking through the caddy book and, just brought it up while we were sitting there watching MPO coverage. It just came up out of nowhere. So it's almost like it was, now thinking about it, I'm like, oh, maybe that was a little like foreshadowing.
Well,
Whether it was her or me or whoever,
I think Carl still with Statmando. Either way, he's worked with them in the past. He says it was your first that they checked. So there you go. It's official from them.
Okay.
So you went into the playoff. That's great. It's a stamp of who you are as a player and what you can do. You now have 100% playoff record. It just shows people you. And by the way, not that again, you don't need me to tell you, but playoff experience is something you can't buy. And so when you get to those points, having that experience over somebody else is different. I mean, I think Paul Macbeth, again, I don't know what the record there is, but he's won a fair amount when he goes to playoffs, and going into Worlds with his last win, I think that was a significant part, stepping up actually to hole 16 there at Emporia. So I think that's awesome for you. Going to a little bit outside of the round, and I'll hand this over to one of the other hosts here in a minute, but going outside of the round that you were playing, although it comes up a little bit, let me start there. At the final hole and approach to 18, as you walked away from your shot, Haley, I'm assuming, either questions or calls a foot fault. It's only you and her on the card, and is Christine there as a PDGA official?
Yes.
Okay, so you had the ability to have a second call on either of you if choosing one way or another. How did that go down, and what happened there in that moment? From our perspective, we saw what didn't look like a foot fault, but what was the moment like?
Yeah, it took a little bit. The shot had landed. I'm already kind of like celebrating in my mind, smiling to Tom and like just being pretty, excited with the end. And, we're walking just a little bit away from, where I had just taken my shot from. And, yeah, Haley questions my stance, and right away, I'm all for making calls if you feel like you see it. There's no ill will there. She thought she saw what she saw. It's all good. The only thing was that it was a playoff, so it was only the two of us and Christine, who was the official, which has to happen when there's less than 3 people on a card. So her only job, and she made it. This is basically from her mouth, is Christine, is her only job was to be there for looking at possible infractions. And she said very confidently right away, after I kind of shrugged, like, I can't even confidently second myself because I don't feel as though a foot fault occurred. So I look at Christine. She said, I was looking at both of your feet and I did not see a stance violation. That's it. That's the end of it. So it was pretty clean. For the most part, there was a little bit, it kind of did drag on a little bit after that, which is unfortunate. But in my opinion, the call was made and we moved on. I moved on, and tapped it in for the win.
And I'm not like trying to dig on dirt. You said it carried on a little bit. Christine made her call. Mm-hmm. And from your perspective, did Haley just acknowledge that and you both acknowledged that and that was the call? You're saying it carried on as in maybe you heard something, mumbling or complaining or something?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. From my standpoint, it was over. But yes, from Haley's standpoint, she seemed to want to continue to discuss it a little further. So I think it was unfortunate that it dragged on a little bit more than it needed to. But we're all learning, and it's a process. The whole official thing being involved also feels a little new, right? We're so used to being self-officiated, but in that scenario, and in every playoff scenario before us that had only two players involved, there's always been an official there because it has to be. We're all, it's just a little new to the whole thing, I think.
Do you think this is your only one? Did you like this aggregate playoff? Now, people in the chat are asking to explain that if they're not familiar. It's instead of sudden death, who plays the hole better, move on and keep tying, you keep moving on. This is you play 3 holes in this scenario. Whoever has the best stroke finish after the 3 holes. Do you, in your mind, like that better? Like just as a person?
Mm-hmm. I think given even specifically having it be at Champions Landing, I think going just to hole 16 and having it basically, that, especially that hole, it's almost always going to be decided on that hole. In this case, it seemed like it wouldn't have been, so it would have been extended no matter what. But who knows? You don't know what could have happened, whatever. But I think that in this case, especially, it was really exciting, and I know that most of the viewers always want to see more. It's kind of a little bit like disappointing when it ends after one hole most of the time. But I enjoyed it as a person. I think that, like I said, I think from a viewer's perspective, I'm sure it was more exciting. And it felt like there was more. You had to work a little harder to win. You just played 3 rounds of golf, and then it could all be decided on one hole. It's a little maybe boring or lackluster. So I like the idea of having to play at least 3 more holes, and then if we were still tied, we would go into sudden death. So it was cool, I thought. Mm-hmm.
So one other interested in your perspective on, we actually talked to Big Germ a little while ago tonight, and we asked his perspective. Just curious yours. When it comes down to a call like that is circulating around the internet right now with Emily Weatherman, whether her disc was OB or not, and had she, it's all hindsight, but had she been able to not have OB and execute the next shot, she might go into the playoff with you, both of you, which would have been really exciting as well. Her group calls it out of bounds. Based off of pictures, our opinion doesn't really matter. The group's decision does. And so my question is more posed around the question of you being in those types of scenarios, which you have been. How are you making a call in that moment? You look obviously visually, but then it's got to be this gut feeling because sometimes it's so close. It's so close. And you are you relying on a gut feeling, or are you saying, hey, when it's that close, I just make a decision for the player? Like, how do you typically make those calls?
Yeah, I have been in that situation many, many times, either on the calling end of it or the person whose disc is being observed. And most of the time that I've had to be in those scenarios, let me preface this by saying I specifically haven't actually gone back and looked at any of the coverage or any of that situation that happened this weekend. So I do plan to go look at that. I'm very curious because I've heard about it, but I haven't.
You need a microscope, or you need something. It's really incredible. Okay.
Yeah. But yes. If it's so close that it is, yeah. If it's too hard to call, or if there's just kind of paint sprayed everywhere, or whatever. There are so many times where it's just not as clear and as cut and dry as you would hope it would be. Most of the time, I am on the side of giving the benefit to the player, or just, yeah, it's just too close to call. I hate now that when you say benefit to the player, now people get all weird about it.
Here's how
But
I would say that. And I'm not trying to correct you because I hear
yeah.
that as well. I think it's actually accurate what you're saying, but I think what's happening is you're saying this is so close to call that I'm calling it inbounds. That's what's happening. And then if it's split, it does go to the benefit of the player. I think what you're doing is benefit to, I can't call it, I'm calling it inbounds. And that's totally part of the game. So that's interesting. I think those are tough scenarios, but it is how the game's set up right now. And whether you want Christine Jennings helping make those calls or some other official, it's how the game is called right now. And some people don't like it. The commentator, one of the commentators, I think it was Ian, I'll just throw his name out there because I was listening. He said, if she had had a different group of card mates, I think she would have been called in. And that is really interesting because do you feel like, you don't have to say any names, do you feel like there's certain groups you could be in that would just be like way more in favor of being towards the player inbounds versus others where you might be like, man, this is going to be a really tough card if we run into those? Do you feel like players are more strict or less strict?
Yes, there
Okay.
are a lot of players that can go one way or the other. And it's so tough because you, especially now, I feel like we all have a little bit more confidence in being able to express our opinion on a call, as it maybe wasn't so much that way in the past. I don't know what the shift is. I think people have become more comfortable with feeling confident in calling, making calls, no matter the scenario. But with that comes, there's different levels of reasonability, or I don't know the word, but people have very different ways of viewing things, and it's hard not to stay objective in those scenarios. And and a lot of people also just at that point maybe don't care, or maybe they care too much, or I don't know, there's such a fine line to toe there, and I wish more people could just stay concise and direct, and I don't know, it's so hard, it's so weird, it's so
Maybe we
weird.
could
It's
turn
such a
to,
strange thing.
this is kind of a joke. We can give everybody little like I'm thinking of like Jeopardy style clickers. They just have it in their pocket. It's in or out, and you don't have to reveal what you voted. That way it doesn't turn like, crazy. You just say it's in or out, let it be anonymous in that sense, but that's kind of a joke. But I'm going to pass it over. We got off topic a little bit there. I want to celebrate your win. I think it was fantastic to do it, especially in that playoff that way. That's hard. Like I said, you can't buy those. So to do that, something now you get to tack on to your history as well. So Josh, if you have a few questions, we'll get it over to her and then we'll call it good.
Yeah, we don't need to drag it out much more. Hi, Missy. Thank you for joining. Always a fan in our house watching you. My wife's name is Melissa Graham, and she has the same initials. And she said, make sure you tell Missy I have the same initials. Her name's Melissa.
I have the same initials too. I always want to like hats and shirts. I love it.
It's true, but I just had to get that out there anyway. Congrats. But you've been trying to get this DDO win. I think you can this is my question. Does it have a special place in your heart? Tell us a little bit about the journey trying to get that win, and then of course the actual glass blown trophy, a little ode to the heritage and the history there. So is this special to you, winning this event?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been playing, I came into the Glass One Open for the first time in 2017, actually, as an amateur playing in FA1. And yeah, I've been going there ever since. And, at one point I was sponsored by Dynamic Discs too. So it always felt like one of those big events that I always wanted to go to, and seemed to do pretty well through the years, got better and better. And always just saw, Paige hoist the trophy and all of the other players that have won that event so many times. And I've always wanted a glass blown open trophy. And now that it's Dynamic Disc Open, I'm very happy. I was actually talking to EMAC after the final round, and I was like, even though the name has changed, I'm really happy that, you guys have kept the glass blown open trophy the same. And he expressed the same sentiment. And so, yeah, it's just really cool to finally have one of my own.
Yeah, that's awesome. Seeing that kind of the heritage of that event. Those who have watched over the last few years may not remember that or know, but it's kind of cool. So again, congrats on that. Matt already kind of asked a lot of the questions about how things unfolded, but I want a little more from your perspective. I think more than once I saw you kind of standing there and maybe taking a deep breath before a throw. What's actually going through your mind? Is it actually kind of like freeing your mind to just execute? Are you thinking about anything, or is it just calming the body? Like, that's intentional, I presume? What's happening there?
Yeah, that's something I kind of implemented. I want to say, I don't know, maybe back in like 2021. I really started to pay attention to like my body and my heart rate, and I have always read about how breathing, regulating your breathing and directly regulates your heart rate, and that's just something that I feel like really centers me and calms me down before a shot. So taking a deep breath, I always tell people when they ask for like one tip or something like that, I'll kind of just like try to focus on your breathing, try to figure out how to calm yourself down through just what your body naturally wants to do is breathe. So yeah, taking a deep breath really centers me and helps me calm down right before I'm about to take the shot. So it's just been now something that I've built into my pre-shot routine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. I think there's probably a lot of other pros and amateurs who are still trying to learn how to calm that body down in the moment. What's it like standing on the tee pad of hole 16? I mean, just especially with the tournament on the line, or at least almost on the line. Like, is that daunting, or is it just another shot you got to execute? How are you feeling?
It's kind of like a really cool challenge now. Like, it's not often that we share the same tee pad as the MPO players, and it's a very reasonable distance. I think it's like 320 or something like that. And but it's so hard to throw an accurate shot in the wind almost always. To an island, no matter how much that new wall in the back, feels like you could just blast one there. It still takes a lot of confidence and a lot of precision. And so, you almost, yeah, if you make the island, you almost you want that birdie, right? Like, even if you get a par, you're still gaining strokes on a lot of the field, but like, it's so much more satisfying when you get the birdie on that hole. And so it kind of baits you into pinning it or putting it close. And that's why you see a lot of people come up short, because they're just trying to get to the pin. But yeah, it went from being a really scary shot, maybe, a year or two ago, to now a really fun challenge. And it could be a heartbreaker, but at the same time, it's challenging for most everybody. And you kind of have to have a little bit of luck on your side as well.
Yeah, certainly challenge. It would still be scary for me, but it's awesome seeing you all throw it. And like sometimes the things, I mean, like you don't have to comment on all these, but the things that happen, like in the final round, Haley King's disc hits inbounds and seems to spin in place and then spit back down. And then obviously in the playoffs, yours kind of sticking up, literally the whiskers on the string kind of, maybe we could say we're propping it up. But
yeah.
Hey, all right. So another thing, I just always love hearing the perspective of either the emotions or the thoughts. So on hole 18, with the water carry, what thoughts went through your mind when Haley King throws short and goes out of bounds?
Yeah, it's so funny because I had to throw kind of a scramble shot to even get to the green, because there was no laying up. I had to make it onto the green somehow.
Yeah, it was an amazing shot, by the way. Everybody live was watching and saying, "Is she going to really do that?" And then you did it.
I had no choice, so I did it. And I go to Tom. I'm like happy that I made it, but I see that now I have a 55 60 footer. Even Lisa walks by me, gives me a fist bump. She's like, "All right, now all you got to do is make it."
That's it.
It was really, it was a cool little exchange. And that's exactly what was going through my mind. I'm like, okay, I got a 55 footer coming up. Because I would never assume that anybody was going to miss that shot. And especially Haley. And that just things happen. You never know. You just got to put yourself in you can't think about what other people may or may not do. You have to just worry about what you need to do. And that's where I was already thinking about how am I going to putt this putt? I have to putt it high enough. I'm already thinking about what I need to do next. And so, yeah, that was just a shock, a surprise. And now she misses it. So she then makes the second shot, the second attempt. And I'm like, okay, do I make this? Do I try to make this putt now? Like I'm in a position where the situation has flip flopped,
Yeah.
and I could try to make this putt to win it, but it's a really risky putt that's super elevated on. The slope is not in my favor on my, what I'm going to have to do with my putt. It's going to fade into the slope, into the water. So yeah, I gave it kind of like a little half go, but in my mind, I'm like, I might as well give myself the opportunity to go into a playoff and to win in extra holes. So let me give us a soft bid, not really trying to make it, and let's not just throw it all away, because that would be worse. I'd rather just put myself in the position to win it out, to win it in extra holes.
Yeah,
So that's what
it
I did.
certainly seems like the right decision. And the game is always the what ifs. You can never really play that out. But if you had thought, hey, there's no way I should try to execute this drive to get it on the 18th, Haley may have had a different approach or had less pressure. So yeah, it's exciting to see how the decisions played out. So so again, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
So to start the year, you averaged, if we just literally straight averages, 5th place before U.S. Women's, and then you go out and win a major, so which is incredible. And then since then, you've averaged 14th place.
Okay.
And then you just had a win. So I'm just curious, how do you feel your year's going? And by the way, that question's broad, because like relative to your own expectations is really probably my question. I think relative to the field, you've got a major and an elite series, so it's going incredible. But like, just curious how you feel with kind of hearing a little bit about how the trends have went for you with these 2 wins.
Yeah, take out Jonesboro and that average goes up, right? So like Jonesboro was the worst finish that I've had in a very, very long time. And it was just that tournament was disappointing in and of itself, but I can't really explain what went wrong, what happened. It just sort of was, hopefully in my mind, it was an anomaly. And it just wasn't a good weekend for me in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I'm very, very happy with the start of my season this year. I typically kind of ramp up towards the end of the season. So to have 2 significant wins, one being a major, which just tops so many things. What more could I ask for? I would be happy if I had, all podiums, and no wins. But the fact that I have, 2 big victories already, and it's only a third of the way through the season, I couldn't be more proud of what I've accomplished so far.
Real quick, you would, if you got rid of Jonesboro, you would be averaging 4th place finishes. So instead of 6th, so 2 spots better.
Yeah, so I would agree that you're having an amazing year. Do you feel like, maybe this is a silly question, but you can win on any given weekend? Is that your mindset right now?
Yes. There are obviously I honestly didn't feel like the favorite going into this weekend. Last year Haley and Holland battled it out and also went into a playoff. So it was it's been a course that I've played pretty well on historically, but certainly not especially in the wind. I feel like I'm a little bit at a disadvantage because I have to kind of stray from my normal my normal disc selections, although I do know my stable discs really well. It just it kind of shakes things up for me a bit. So but yeah, I mean, anytime I go out to compete, I'm trying to shoot the best score possible, and I know that my game plan is, what is the best way for me to get the birdie on each and every hole. So, you know, I never doubt myself, and yeah, I'm out here to get a job done, and yeah, that's when I'm very stubborn too. So when I put my mind to something, it's hard to get me off of that track.
Awesome. So we're super excited to have you on the show tonight, and we really appreciate your quick response. It was amazing. Sometimes we get delays. It was, yes, 100% I'm in, and we appreciate that. It's always helpful to us in lining out the show, and we know it's tough sometimes. You guys are traveling the next day. It's a travel day usually, so we appreciate that.
Into a tornado.
And through tornadoes. We talked about that a little bit before you came on. Yeah, you are in a handful of players, 5 or 6 players right now, that are right about in that same exact average finish to this point in the season. I mean, you got Evelina, you got Henna, you got yourself, you got Owen, you got Holland, and then you have Kristen, who's just a little bit higher average there, or better average. And that is just super exciting for the fans. I'm sure your fan base just keeps growing, and we hope things like this, these little side podcasts, maybe people hear more about you. And we heard something with the fandom surveys that have been done in the past. Have you ever checked those out, by the way? The fandom surveys, Ultiworlds post them up. They have a writer. What's his name again?
Jesse?
Yes,
Jesse Weiss.
Thank you, Weiss. Have you seen those at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't really studied them. I'll see people like repost them, and maybe I've even reposted one myself.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, I've seen it a little bit.
Well, so
yeah.
Fun fact, and we hope it's true for all guests, but it seems to be some correlation to interviews that we have. Those players who have been on our show tend to have a little higher fandom positivity.
Ooh,
It could just be like a coincidence, but we like to think that people get to know you better through these interviews, and then in return they want to root for you more. So I think you have a great fan base, and excited for all that you have going on. And I will always talk about the ferry ride I took with you and your boyfriend and Tom over to Nantucket. I will always bring that up until the day we die. But that was great. That was great to meet you then. And we also share something else in common with the New England Team Challenge, something that you've participated in. So that's really fun as well. But you're probably not participating as much anymore, right?
No, and I still get messages, if you're around, and it was so fun. And honestly, I hate when I go out to the court like this weekend. It was like upper 50s and windy and a little rainy, and like, I'm like so cold, and I'm like, what happened to
Who am
me?
I?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I used to play in the snow at night, and the team challenge it was like 6 degrees out over at Camden or whatever course it was. I don't know.
That's funny.
Those people are very strong, and I hope to get back to my roots one day.
Well, we just had finals a few weeks ago. That was pretty cool for A-Pool, but cool. We've kept you long enough, and we assume that you're going to keep performing at a high level, and we'll probably reach out to you again when the storylines make sense. And until then, though, just keep it up. We're excited to watch.
Think you guys. I really appreciate you having me, and I'm always happy to be on on your show, and I'll make it if I can. Those situations when I can't.
Can we do this?
Don't happen often.
If you can't make it, sub in Tom. I mean, he's right there. He's front row. Maybe he could talk for you.
Probably could.
He was probably partying just as hard a couple weeks ago.
I was gonna say, he might not have been in the best shape either.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're glad to have you. We'll catch up another time. Everybody, Missy Ganon. Any shout outs you want to do before you go? No? You're good?
Yeah. Well, whatever. Friends, family, sponsors, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. And I'll see you on the next one.
All right, cool. Peace out, Missy.
Bye.
All right, everybody.
Her Thrashers for this year's Tour Series disc.
Wow.
Z Flex Jawbreaker. It's pretty sick.
Thrash. All right, as we get ready to wrap up the show, that was fantastic. Always love having her on. It's easy to get thumbnail clippings for our show as well. She's always smiling. That's great. So she touched on some things. I'm going to let her keep her opinions on those. We don't even need to share anymore unless you're absolutely wanting to. I did want to bring up a few things, though. Evan, you can comment on this now that you're back.
Ooh, all right.
My quick stats called just looking at the player field size. This is the smallest field size of tour card holders. This is the smallest field size we've seen at this
DDO?
point in the season. Yeah. For both divisions.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious if we had any thoughts on that, if anybody had any thoughts on that. And MPO, it was fairly significant. It was 20 tour card holder players in the MPO that were not there compared to previous events. And FPO is a little lighter, not as drastic. But what are you guys' thoughts there? Is it just because it followed a big event or what?
Yeah, I mean, Evan probably has a much better answer for this than I do, but I know the players have been playing back to back weeks. Just coming off of a major where the conditions weren't incredible, wears on your body a little bit more, and then going out to a course that the players have been playing with some subtle changes here and there. But the players have been playing it for so many years. It's not everyone's favorite course to play. I actually thought this year it was a little bit more enjoyable to watch. I don't really know why. I think I'm just into disc golf a little bit more. But
Let's go.
Yeah,
disc
I think.
golf.
What's that?
I said, let's go disc golf. I'm hyping you up.
Yeah, exactly. And but no, I think it was just it's been a busy couple of months so far. The first third of the season was definitely pretty hectic. A lot of events. Players are worn out, want to catch up on some injuries, try to heal up a little bit. So I think that's the main reason.
Anybody else?
I think Nick's right about on it, quick 10 seconds, hole 18. I thought the landscaping of it was really nice. That's the new changes that's coming in with Champions Landing being bought by Jeremy Rusco. So cool to see. Excited for the future in Emporia. I think it gets a worse rap than it should. I think it is a cool destination still, and I like seeing it on the tour. But I think we're also hitting this point where the tour is going to separate for a little bit with the introduction of Disc Golf Pro Tour Europe and Elite Series events happening over there. Last year we just had the PCS Open along with the major being the European Open. A major has been over in Europe in consistent years or sometimes two, but now we're having a Elite Series tour. And the way it's set up is it's almost alternating weeks. And so we'll have live disc golf. We'll have disc golf to talk about every single week for a while, but you're going to pick and kind of choose which tour you're going to be on, whether it's the North America or Europe, or if you're going to pond hop in between the two, which is quite a far trip from Europe all the way to the West Coast that we're heading to in the North America swing. So I think we're going to see a little bit of separation. We're going to see, you could call it dilution, but what I'm going to turn it into is, with how much the tour is growing, like, look how sustainable this event was with so many big names taking it off. I mean, MPO, it had a few, but it felt like almost every single big name was at DDO except for maybe Eagle, but that's kind of been the standard for this year, only playing one event. FPO was a little bit more missing, the big names that we've seen, especially Kristen Tatar, the number one player in the world, and then Evelina Salonen coming off of a win and second of the season, not being in there. And then with how strong the Europeans have been in FPO, with only Lucky Lorenzen being the only European in the field, it felt a little bit thinner. But then you look at how many people were there. I mean, Missy Ganon, like she's one of the best players in the game right now. Owens Goggins as well. Haley King. I mean, Holland Hanley. Like it was an exciting matchup, and it maybe felt thinner than I think it really was. And I think this trend's going to continue. So my words are, get used to it. It's going to be exciting. I see it as a positive. I mean, maybe not all people see it that way, but I think it's really exciting to see kind of the two separations happening.
True. And just
two paths, maybe, not separation.
Quick side note here. Obviously, Simon Lizotte, new dad to the second
yes.
child.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Also,
how could I miss Simon?
Yeah, and also James Proctor. My social media tells me he got married.
Just got married.
Yep, so he's not there. And I saw notable other players at his wedding. So there's probably quite a few things that lined up here. But yeah, there's significant names. But just curious, it's this point in the season, it seems like it was definitely noticed as a lighter field. But to your point, a lot of the big names were there. Some were missing, but a lot of them were there. Other question, if Josh wanted to comment on that, but also while everyone else, if you do comment on that, we can look at our last comment. What stands out to you? Everybody gets a chance. Ben hasn't said one word the whole show. We'll go around. We'll do a little bit round table here. What stands out to you? You get to pick one in FPO and one in MPO. on the leaderboard from this event, what stands out to you? You just pick one person. Hey, this person does, or this thing stands out to me, or whatever it is. So if you want to pull it up, find the results, you can. Just it's off the cuff. It doesn't have to be anything deep or incredible. So Josh,
can you order?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so like an FPO, Lisa Fakis just surprised me. I mean, like we've seen her perform well, so like that's not the shock. But like what, like up and down, not sure, kind of feeling like where's she at, and then here she is like competing for the win. So that surprises me in FPO. And we've already talked about. Okay, it's not new this season, but it just continues to pour it on with Joey Buckets. So, like, I don't know if I count that as a surprise, but it's just like, all right, like, just keeps putting, the foot to the, the pedal, and here we go, right? At some point, he's going to win.
All right, cool. Who wants to take it next?
I'll go next.
All right, cool.
Haley King, FPO, back-to-back years going into a playoff. She won it last year versus Holland Hanley on hole 16, and then this year losing in the aggregated playoff. I think it's a course that suits her game very well, actually. She's a great distance thrower, incredible forehand as well. And then MPO side, I think Ricky was my lock to win the event this week, but Calvin starting out 7 for 7 it's pretty hard to beat, but definitely seeing Ricky kind of still right up there, even after so many years of playing. Ricky is still consistent, and he's still one of the top dogs in the sport.
Yeah.
I want to look at Emily Weatherman again. I mentioned her at the top of the show, but she's playing phenomenal, like really breaking out this season. I mean, she's 17, 18, maybe 19. I don't know her exact age, but just a young up and coming player. There's lots of talks about Lizra Midling. We had her on the show, all the hype of her, and she's had a solid start to the year, but I don't think Emily Weatherman was a name that we expected at the start of the year, that even we heard of until these, last couple of weeks or months where she's really shined and here getting a podium. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And then a name I want to say on MPO, I'm going to scroll down a little bit farther to tied for 19th. We have Randy Deek.
It's Duick.
Duick, look at that. Out of Belize. I don't know if he's natively from there or if that's just where he resides. But that's super cool that someone from Belize is playing Elite Series events. And he's been playing quite a few this year. He only had 2 major Elite Series events prior to this season. And he finished 81st and 92nd in those 2. And then here he is, maybe not having all the best starts, a lot of, 60 pluses, 80 pluses, but 27th at Texas State's. That was his first cash for major and elite events. And then here he is 19th, getting his first top 20. That's super cool to see. And it looks like he's grinding on tour. So I love to see it and want to give him a shout out.
Cool. Yeah, Big Germ on coverage was like, "This is Randy Duick." That's how I knew.
That's hilarious.
All right, Ben, you're up.
Yeah, for me, FPO, I was going to say Emily Weatherman as well, but another crazy one is Emma Arp, 8th place. I don't think any of us knew who that was. I think it just is a testament just how crazy the FPO field is kind of getting and more competitive, that these names that our rookies are doing so well that we haven't really heard. So it's a very exciting time for FPO. So shout out Emma Arp, seemingly came out of nowhere and got 8th place. But I'm surprised no one's really been talking about this. Andrew Presnell, after his Champions Cup win in the woods, he's known as a wood slayer, probably honestly known like he can't throw far. Like that's when you think of Andrew Presnell. And when you think of DDO, it's like, okay, a bomber course. He comes in 5th place following up his Champions Cup win, which I think is very impressive. I mean, it's basically a statement like, yeah, I can slay the woods, but don't you count me out. I still got an arm. So I think it was a very good statement piece. Prez for Prez.
Good job. I don't know how to follow that.
Wait, play the American music.
No, okay.
Press for press.
I would agree with it's tough going last, so I'll just kind of echo it a little bit. Lisa Fakis does stand out. Hasn't been showing up that much as of late to the top of the leaderboard, so that does stand out. And then Emily Beach having such a pop performance stands out. And then finally Emily Weatherman. Some of you guys talked about each of those. I said one, but I couldn't because you guys took all the ones. In fact, Andrew Presnell was my one in MPO, so I'll just stick with it there. I agree. It stands out to me. Other than that, how can we look the other way of Mason Marchbank? So there you go.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Evans,
that
Mason
is it.
Marchbanks.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's funny. My second youngest son, Tanner, he plays pop drop lock. They love playing. And I think probably based off of your recommendation, Evan, he put in Mason Marchbanks, and he went to look right before the event, as in like he submitted it or as the event started, and he's like, oops, I put him in my drop.
Well,
He was
one
the
I
drop
found.
that Josh
I found
mentioned.
one in the drop, and I'm like, what's going on?
He was the drop.
So Tanner, my son,
That's
got
hilarious.
like almost
Oh,
last. By
man.
1 point, he was just about last. So he's
That's
like,
so
Dad,
funny.
he's like, can you throw in a favor for me and get that changed? And I said,
Rules are
Yeah,
rules.
Rules are.
son.
Thank you, Ben. Let's go.
to be clear, I didn't change it for my own son. How about that? So,
Yeah.
Yep.
all right.
Sorry, Teener.
Yeah, sorry, Tanner. Ben ruined it
Josh,
for
you had a
everybody.
couple things.
Yeah,
What?
I
Oh.
just like
Your pocket's on fire, allegedly.
I know. I mean, like, look, I know we're 2 hours in, and Evan, I also know
who
you've
cares?
got some like probably meaningful stuff to share, and then I know we're getting close to wrapping. And so we don't even have time to debate this, but we're going around all these things that are all hot all over the internet, and we asked some of our interviewers, but like, look, for the OB call, first of all, the people who are saying, can we just make the line be considered in? It's the stupidest thing ever, because all you're doing is just moving the debate by 2 inches. So don't be stupid. Now, the idea of a string like makes sense. Like, right, like in other words, like precision, line, all that, that's fine. We can debate that. But literally saying, well, if we just called the line in, yes, in that case it would have made a difference. But in any other throw, it may or may not. So like I don't really understand that. And then we already talked about the problem with saying benefit to the player. But here's one thing you have to ask yourself. Like, so what if those players who made the call, what if they actually truly thought the disc was out? You like, unless you're going to say, I think that they intentionally changed the call, or unintentionally and unaware are emotionally like, swayed by the fact that they're a competitor, which both of those could be knowingly or unknowingly. Unless you're saying they just objectively made the wrong call, like, and you're not there, I don't understand how you can debate that. Now, I think there's lots of challenges with having the player self-officiate. I'm not arguing that. Like, it creates these problems. But to say, like, they made the wrong call or not, it's just not that obvious. And if they're there, all we can do is ask them to make the call that they think is correct. And I think you have to literally say, you have to make a judgment. Is that in or out? And they have to say one way or the other. And if they don't think it's in, what do you expect them to say?
And to be clear, 3 of them had to say it was out. So either they're all in cahoots and they're going to agree that we're all just going to make this decision, or to your point, Josh, that's what they thought. I mean, if 2 of them thought it and 2 of them didn't, that's where benefit goes to the player. So I agree with you. Good take.
Yeah.
So this is kind of one thing that we've talked about so much with rules and foot faults on time violations. They were the final card. They were the lead card, or chase card, excuse me, right? She was chase card. So more than likely, they had a marshal on the card as well. Did the marshal come over and have any sway into this?
Well-
I mean, I feel like that's an opportunity where a marshal should have been there.
Well, to that
And-
point, Big Germ's interview said it made him angry. Big
It
Germ
made-
said, "Why is he over here? Get out of here! You shouldn't be
Oh,
here."
but
baby."
that was
Get lost,
for
pal.
the tournament that he was playing. I mean, was that a B tier and A tier?
A
We're
tier.
not talking about an Elite Series event that Big Germ was at, right? I think
It was
that
A
just an
tier.
A tier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about an Elite Series event that, like, things matter like this, to where like that official, that marshal, should be the most unbiased person making that call, to where that I feel like that would have been a perfect opportunity for a marshal to come over and make a call. Yeah. No.
I don't know. I don't feel that. I don't feel it, but I'm not going to argue against it. Like, I don't
Well, it's
feel
the same
like
thing.
it.
A marshal made the call in the playoff for a foot fault.
But there was only 2 players. They couldn't make their own call. Right?
Yeah.
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 So, anyways, yeah. So, Josh, that was a good take.
All right, one more thing. People saying, why would you call a foot fault? Because there's no advantage. And that frustrates me to no end, because if you have to consciously focus on not stepping on your disc, which, by the way, is not what happened. We all see that that's not what happens. So I'm just talking about like in general. Like if you have to actually think, I better not step on my disc, I have to step carefully. That's an extra cognitive load, which makes it more challenging to throw. That's the advantage or not. People are like, oh, like we should only be calling if they're trying to lean around a tree and they're getting an actual advantage they're not allowed to have. Like, yes, that should be called, but the rest of it should also be called. Unless you want to change the rule, which says use some discretion to determine if they got an advantage by not, standing properly in their lie, which would be silly, right? Because that's like entirely subjective. I mean, I'd be fine if they find ways to allow more flexibility in that rule, but at the moment, that is what it is. Now, in this case, I'm not debating. I think we see it wasn't a foot fault. You heard Missy's comments on maybe some of the frustration that was expressed. I'm not commenting on that, but just in general, I literally heard, I'm not going to speak who, well, maybe I will, but on some other podcast where they're like, there's no advantage. Like, why are you calling that? There's no advantage to be had. And I'm like, I don't understand the logic. But anyway.
Who are they saying there's no advantage for? There's no advantage for the person calling it. There's no advantage for the person.
No,
like,
there's
if
no
the
advantage for the person throwing
disc,
it. Therefore, you shouldn't call them. In other words,
okay.
like if they're an inch off and they stepped on the front edge of their disc and it wasn't on purpose, don't call it because they're not getting an advantage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they are getting an advantage if they don't have to focus on the fact that they have to step very carefully.
Well,
right?
I mean,
that makes it harder. We all know, like a run up in a field is harder when you're trying to think about where your plant foot has to go.
Yeah. Like Natalie Ryan's post, she was called, I forget exactly what she said, 2 or 3 times on foot faults this past weekend for stepping on her disc. And so that's something to where she had said, she's like, I need to be more cognizant about that. Like I need to focus on that. So
yeah, I think others were too. I actually heard there were a lot of foot
there's a huge advantage on like, if you're playing on a wide open hole and you end 2 inches behind where you're supposed to plant your foot, or if you step on your disc a little bit, like, do I think there's a huge advantage? No, not necessarily. But if we're talking about the rules of the game right now, that is the rule of the game, to where if she wanted to call it, she had every right to call it if that's what she thought happened. And so, I mean.
Yeah. All right. And then very, very last thing. Well, maybe second to last. I know I'm running on, but you invited me on the show. This one's all about Matt. Like, I don't understand. Like, since U.S. women's, Missy's finished 4th, 22nd, and 17th. So that's not averaging 4th. So she said she was averaging better with taking Jonesboro out, but 17th finish at Champions Cup's not all that hot either. Even though I think Missy's having an incredible year. So like, that's not my point. Just trying to set the record straight.
Dang, Matt lying like Evan used to do.
Last thing, can we save this?
Champions Cup, she took 7th.
7th? All right, well, then I stand corrected.
Oh, then Josh.
What did you say? 17th?
He says 17th.
Is it 17th? What is it?
No, it's 7th.
Okay. Thank you for that burn back.
Ouch, brothers.
Hey,
brotherly burns.
Hey, we have multiple stances on this show, and that's totally
Staggered
fine.
stance.
I am fine
Even
with
on
being corrected.
finishes.
Matt did have the right stance, though.
Can we save this for a future show? I want to talk about spectators. I'm curious what people's perspective is on that. Plant that
I
for a
actually
future
kind of want, because that was a big topic this week. A lot of people commenting saying DDO did not have that many spectators. I was scrolling through Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It is X, so I'll call it X. Someone had posted saying DDO's crowd sucked. They need to go back to the way they used to. Zach Melton commented. He's like, dude, the weather was crap. Like, it was not good weather to spectate in. It was rainy, it was windy, and it was pretty cold. Like, I'm sorry. I've been to Pro Tour tournaments where I've traveled with people to them where sometimes I'm just spectating. And even at Maple Hill, I'm like, I'd rather hang out at my parents' house than go in the super windy weather or the rain or something like that than go to the course itself. So, yeah, people don't want to go and spectate. Not everyone wants to go and spectate in that. So, yes, the crowds were smaller. Okay, it is what it is.
Yeah. And to deviate from the crowd topic, but like in the same realm, like there's been a little bit of doom and gloom around disc golf this year with like spectators at multiple events feel down, or like disc golf feels down. And the viewership numbers, like I pulled up Jomez earlier today because I was curious about it. I saw people complaining about, the spectator numbers, and I was like, all right, like there's more to it than that. And looking at Jomez, like they're pushing 200,000 views on coverage and like post-production coverage. Like what, like it's insane. What other sport is getting that kind of numbers for post-production? Like, it's more than highlights. We all know that, but like it kind of is in the same realm of highlights. It's not live. It's after the fact on how you're consuming it. Like 200,000's like a really good number. Like obviously like there's all these numbers. I mean, like Caitlin Clark to the March Madness was like, we're putting numbers in millions. Like we're not on that level. We're not on the NBA finals. We're not on Stanley Cup finals. We're definitely not on the Super Bowl. My goodness. But like, I'm a soccer fan. Like MLS posts their numbers for when they're on broadcast television and they're like mid 300,000's. And that's a league with like almost 30 billionaires running it. Like, whole deal with the Lionel Messi in the league. Like that's like mid 300,000s is their average number. And here Jomez is pushing that on round one coverage from Emporia, Kansas. Like disc golf is doing great. Like there's so many positives to look at, and I don't want to play doom and gloom around the, less spectators. Nick, I think you made great points. So I'll leave that for that.
We've agreed a lot tonight, Evan. I appreciate it.
Hey, we agree to disagree and we agree to agree.
Exactly.
I will say as we pretty much close out here that I just would have a brain freeze like that. Oh, here it is. DDO. Spectators. I'm trying to think. Nick, you've been there. To Emporia. Yeah. It's in the middle of realistically kind of nowhere. I mean.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And so I know they were talking about bringing back the AM side. Maybe they did this year, but the whole Glass Blown Open was a thing. They would bring in thousands of people that are players, but also able to watch the final day. A lot's changed there, so it's not unusual to see a smaller crowd there. We'll just keep watching as we go. There's a lot of big events that draw the crowds, and disc golf is fine. All right. I think we've made it.
Evan's got Cliff Notes.
Oh, Cliff Notes.
I wanted to do a quick look ahead. I mean, we got a lot of cool events.
Do it.
We'll Santa Cruz Masters Cup is happening this week, and that's a long-time Elite Series event. And an A-tier. We got Owen Scoggins leading the field, but also Emily Weatherman. So maybe we'll see an upset and a few other great ladies in that. In MPO, Ezra Robinson, Robert Burge, Chandler Kramer, and Chandler Fry are notable names. That's exciting. Gala is always a fun watch. I'm hoping to see on a post-production. But then there's also the Las Vegas Challenge. My goodness, another A-tier. That field is really stacked. Calvin Heimburg, Gannon Burr, Richard Wysocki, Isaac Robinson, Anthony Barella. I could keep on naming names, but there's a lot more in it with Katrina Allen, Lisa Fagas, Lucky Lorenz, and Maria Oliva. Like that field is completely stacked. No longer an Elite Series, and now it has a new date, and it's got all sorts of players. But then the Disc Golf Pro Tour has their Q Series launching at the 303 Open. I think this is cool. Not mainly. One of the reasons is it's at the Badlands, which is, of course, I played a lot while I was in college, so it's cool to see a big event there. And you got Joel Freeman, Aaron Gossage, Paul Kranz. So look for the Q Series and the new up-and-comers to the tour. Holly Finley and FPO is going to be a leader there. But the biggest one is over in Europe. We have a new Elite Series event with the Copenhagen Open. I talked about it a few times throughout the show leading up to it. But get excited for this one. We might see a new winner. Evelina Salonen and Annika Sten are the only winners in FPO, but there's also Heine Line, Silver Saarinen, Rachel Turton, and a few others. And in MPO, Nicholas Antila is probably the biggest favorite. But we also got Chris Clemens, Greg Barsby, Paul Uelbari. Those two are former national tour winners. Maybe they can get an Elite Series win over in Europe. So I'm super stoked for that, and I can't wait for all the disc golf this weekend. It's not an off week just because the North American tour is traveling over the West Coast. So I'm excited for it, stoked, and hope you guys enjoy disc golf too.
That's
Evan, did you see where the Q Series finale is?
I got announced. It's at Olympus. Let's go. That's cool. And Maine States got added, so that's super cool as well.
Yes.
We got a New England event. I think that's the only New England event. I feel like there's a second one, but that's it. So super cool. And wow, my spiel went right to the end of the music.
That's sweet.
It was perfect.
So.
Yeah, you did great.
Out, Nick.
You sped it up. Yeah, exactly. So no, just really quick, Q Series finale happening at Olympus. We are super excited to partner once again with the Pro Tour and bring some awesome players out to the property. By then, we will have made so many fun improvements. We're working on it every single day right now. So everybody, thanks for tuning in on this wonderful Monday night to, I think Matt said, episode 188 of Staggered Stance.
Think so.
We are super excited that you guys were all joining with us tonight. Awesome interviews. Check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go check out Disc Golf 978 and Hooligan Discs for all the awesome stuff that they do to help us out. Tell someone you love them this week. We will catch you in the next one.
That's right. Ben, you're awesome. Nick, you're awesome. Evan, Josh, you guys are awesome. Until next week, everybody. See you there. See you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Peace out.